Hey now, happy Thursday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. He's Dan Lucero. Just the two of us for the rest of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Short week the rest of the way. 2 days, yeah, duh. But tomorrow we have just over half a show because of the K-State Friday football game with a 6:30 kick. We're out of here tomorrow at 4:30. So full show today. About a half a show coming up tomorrow. And let me tell you, we've got a lot to pack in over the next show and a half. We appreciate you hanging out with us on this Thursday afternoon. Text line's open, 785-272-9429. Or you can hit us up on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, subscribe, and then check out all the video content we've got, including today's live video stream. We are on camera throughout the show today. And the comment section is open, similar to the text line. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about. You can just hang out with the rest of the commentariat and have some fun with us during the show today. We'll talk some Chiefs football coming up here in just a moment. And where on the scale of trap game or not trap game does this contest against the Minnesota Vikings, who are 1-3 on the season, fall? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. Also this hour, we'll hear from Paul Myerberg from USA Today for our Big 12 breakdown on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. In fact, we have a jam-packed guest list on the show today.
Yeah, we do.
Paul Myerberg this hour. Bottom of the hour, Big 12 breakdown. Bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, we're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. 4 o'clock hour, bottom of that hour, we're going to hear from Luke Grimm, the starting wide receiver for the Kansas Jayhawks. You know how big of a fan I am of Luke Grimm. Very, very excited for that conversation.
This is a pro Luke Grimm program.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Maybe the most pro Luke Grimm program.
I got to believe it's one of them. It's high on the list.
I'm willing to put us out there.
I bet we're on the podium.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say definitely so. So Luke Grimm is going to join us coming up bottom of the 4 o'clock hour today. 5 o'clock hour, we've got our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week, JC Zimmerman from Seaman Girls Golf, individual champion at the UKC tournament this past week. And then we're going to round things out today with the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. He's going to join us coming up in the bottom of the 5 o'clock hour today. As I said, jam-packed guest list throughout the show today. We're happy that you're along for the ride with all of our guests. Dan is going to take off after What Is Wrong With You today because we've also got high school football tonight, and it's a big one. Meadowlark, effectively the de facto championship game for the Meadowlark Conference this year. Highland Park, 4-1, coming off their first loss of the season in non-league play against a Missouri school. Lincoln Prep from Kansas City, taking on 5-0 Atchison, which has been putting up some gaudy numbers so far this season. I'm excited about this one. I know Dan is as well. 7 o'clock kick, 6:45 pregame right here on 580 WIBW coming up tonight. Looking forward to that one. Doubleheader for high school football coverage presented by Lewis Toyota tonight on 580, tomorrow on Country 106.9. Wamego versus Shawnee Heights tomorrow night. They played last year as well. That's the first time they had played since 1975.
Wow.
Been a while until the last 2 years.
Yeah, obviously, we get a chance to see Shawnee Heights quite a bit. I think this will be our second look of
second this year.
scheduled three of Shawnee Heights this season, but don't get to see the boys from Boomtown very often. So excited to see Weston Moody's bunch tomorrow night as well. Got a lot of regard for both head coaches. Should be a fun night.
Yeah, really jacked up for both of those. So that is all coming up today. We're going to hear from Spags and Nagy. We've got What Is Wrong With You. We'll talk some college football weekend action. We'll get to our KU and K-State previews for the weekend coming up tomorrow, but we'll get to some other thoughts on what is a big, big weekend, including Red River in college football this weekend, plus your texts, plus your comments on YouTube. But we start today with the Kansas City Chiefs and their matchup at 3:25 Sunday afternoon on the road in Minneapolis against the Minnesota Vikings. This will be the third week in a row that the Chiefs play a team under 500 for the year. 2 weeks ago, it was the Bears. They are miserable, as we know. Last week, it was the Jets. They're a different kind of miserable. I would say slightly less so overall, but still not thrilled.
No, like the Bears are existentially miserable.
Yeah. And then this week, it is the Minnesota Vikings, who I think admittedly are better than 1-3 would indicate. Now, it's not a very big sample. We're a quarter-ish of the way through the season. I don't think they are as good as they were last year. In fact, I'm certain they're not. But also their record was better than their actual team quality a year ago. And their first 3 losses of this season were all in one-score games. So now 1-3 overall, 1-3 in one-score games. So I think Minnesota is probably better than its record would indicate to this point. But it is worth bringing up that after this week, even with 2 games against the Broncos on the horizon, the schedule gets far more interesting, I think, for the Chiefs. Now, that Jets game would have been more interesting if it had been Aaron Rodgers instead of Zach Wilson, but ifs, buts, candy, nuts, you know the whole deal. So you get the 1-3 Vikings on the road this week. After that, in succession, Broncos at home on Thursday, Chargers at home, Broncos road, Dolphins in Germany, bye week, Eagles. That is what I would say at the very least is an intriguing stretch of the schedule. After that, you've got the Raider game, and that Eagles game, by the way, I believe is on a Monday night, And then after the Raiders, you've got another tough stretch of Packers-Bills back-to-back, that Packer game being on the road. Bengals-Chargers to end the season, but the Bengals are pretty bad right now. So this, I think you could argue, of any 5-game stretch, give or take a game or so on either end of it, about as interesting as you're going to get for the Chiefs this season. How worried should you be if you're a fan, if you are just us guys who cover the team, if you're the team itself, that this could be the classic trap game, or maybe even more than trap game, a letdown spot? Because the last, the Bears game, you blew them out, but you weren't great against the Jags. The Jets game, ups and downs, obviously. How worried should Chiefs fans be that this might be a letdown spot game before you get to divisional games, conference games, and frankly, games that just mean a whole lot more in the grand scheme of this season?
It stands out as an obvious one, just by name, by definition, of like a look-ahead spot where the next 3 games are a chance for the Chiefs to take a stranglehold lead on the AFC West if they can sweep the Broncos and beat the Chargers in between. And that would be the expectation, given the way that the Broncos certainly, and also the Chargers, have come out of the gate and performed. Even though those teams have played the Chiefs tough, the thought is the Chiefs have been so dominant in the division that if they go 3-0 in the division, they're not going to lose the division. So you have those opportunities, and then the game against Miami in Frankfurt, which everybody will be talking about. So this does feel like a game you could very easily gloss over. It's not in prime time. It's not a home game. It's not an AFC game. So it's like we talked about with the Lions, right? That loss to the Lions, you didn't want to start 0-1, but if you're going to lose games along the way, it's probably better to lose them out of conference for the sake of tiebreakers and things like that. So, yeah, I think there is a possibility that this one gets overlooked a bit. And then add to it the fact that you look at the Vikings on paper, and we made the joke yesterday, but we'll make it again because I thought it was a good joke. There's that old, I don't know if it's a meme or whatever, but the idea of, hey, they can't keep getting away with this. How do they keep getting away with this? That was the Vikings last year. How do they keep winning games? They don't look to be particularly good. They keep pulling them out of the fire. How do they keep doing this? Now they're not doing it, and they are 1-3. But they're a pretty talented football team for being 1-3, and they've got a good home field advantage at US Bank Stadium typically. This is a more difficult game than I think it looks maybe on paper. But that being said, I generally trust the Chiefs to not get caught in a look-ahead spot. Like we've talked about when we were going into the Bears game, we had talked about all the times that the Chiefs have been double-digit favorites, which they aren't this week. They're only about a 4-point favorite. We talked about all the times the Chiefs are double-digit favorites and the reputation that they have of maybe playing with their food a little bit in games like that. A reputation that's not entirely fair, as it turns out, because they win those games 15 straight now. They've won after beating the Bears as a double-digit favorite. They won straight up 15 straight times. This is not one of those games, and I think with a veteran team, an offense that is still trying to put some pieces together, I think that there is no risk that the Chiefs take the Vikings lightly. They may lose, but it won't be, if they do, because they overlooked this game or they sleptwalked through this game. I don't think there's a danger in that so much as I think there's just general danger when you go up against a team that's capable of scoring a bunch of points that maybe you just get outscored. And this will be the biggest test, I think, so far for the Chiefs secondary.
There are legit weapons in this secondary for the Vikings. And I mean, all pro caliber players. And Justin Jefferson, by most accounts, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. By the way, real quick, is the top three like nailed on? Like, is it Jefferson, Adams, Hill? Like, is it them and everybody else?
Yeah. And I don't know that I'd argue too strenuously, regardless of what order you wanted to put them in.
Yeah.
Like, you catch Tyreek Hill on the right day, he looks like the best wide receiver maybe ever.
Mm-hmm.
You catch Devontae Adams on the right day, and you see why he's dominant, even with a mess of a quarterback situation. Justin Jefferson is incredible. He'd be number one on my list. I'll say that.
Yeah,
I'll say
fair.
I would go Jefferson, Hill, Adams, but that's a strong 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible how high the talent level is at wide receiver right now, but understandably given the nature of the NFL. But that's the guy that obviously all the attention is going to be on, 18 in purple. But they've got other dudes who can make plays. You heard me talk all throughout the draft process about how much I love Jordan Addison. And I was furious that he ended up going to Minnesota with, I believe it was the 20th overall pick this year. I loved him in college, loved him as a prospect, former Biletnikoff Award winner, off to a pretty nice start as far as rookie receivers go through the first 4 games of his career, even with the dumb stuff he did off the field during the offseason this year. As far as number 3s go, KJ Osborne's a pretty nice number 3 wide receiver. He's not special, like in terms of he's got unbelievable traits like the route running of a Jordan Addison or like the everything of a Justin Jefferson, excuse me. But KJ Osborne's a nice number 3. And then TJ Hawkinson, who I think there was a lot of discussion about. I know there was because I was a part of this discussion that like, how good really is he? Because he had a top 10 draft pick kind of pedigree. In Detroit, he was fine. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. But they've done a good job, I think, in Minnesota so far this year of making him a focal point of the offense, of getting him the ball, of making sure, hey, you're big, you're fast, you're strong. Let's use those abilities and make something out of it. Now, for all the good Minnesota has, and I think this plays into why this is going to be the biggest test for the Chiefs secondary yet, they've got all those weapons, and Kirk Cousins, for all of his flaws, he can move the ball through the air. He can. They can't run. Alexander Mattison just doesn't have it. He does not have the juice at all. Their offensive line has stunk pretty much the entire time Cousins has been in Minnesota, if not even further back than that. So there are going to be areas, I think, where the Chiefs can thrive in this game. It's the kind of game where you miss, if Nick Bolton can't go, you would miss his leadership, his organizational ability. But in terms of, damn, we need guys to get downhill and thump the running back near the line of scrimmage, that probably is going to take care of itself this week because their running game is just terrible. But knowing that, and knowing that the Chiefs secondary is still young and prone to making some mistakes, I imagine this is going to be 45 pass attempts or more for Kirk Cousins in this game.
And the other thing that stands out about Minnesota through the first 4 weeks is how turnover prone they've been. I mean, we make jokes about Kirk Cousins, and he's a fine quarterback, but he's been limited over the course of his career.
Yeah.
He's already thrown 4 picks this season. He threw 14 last year. 2 years ago, he only threw 7. There have been times in Kirk's career where he's done a good job taking care of the football. So far, not this year. 4 interceptions in the first 4 weeks. And the Vikings have lost 7 fumbles in the first 4 weeks. Now, some of that is bad luck. Sure, like fumble luck, you'd expect to recover your fair share of fumbles, and it's clear that the Vikings have not. But how the hell do you fumble 7 times in 4 games in the first place is my question.
Yeah.
How does that happen? So,
and it's not like when they had Adrian Peterson as a young running back who fumbled all the time, but you lived with it because
he was Adrian Peterson.
Oh my God.
Right.
Like Hall of Fame caliber player. They don't got guys like that who are losing the ball.
Cousins has fumbled 4 times. They have fumbled 8 times offensively and lost 7 of them, which is amazing. Like, you would expect better luck, but 4 fumbles and 4 interceptions from Cousins in the first 4 weeks. Like, you got to get him while the getting's good and create some plays that would give your offense a short field and opportunities to score more points, get in the end zone, get some confidence, get some rhythm. I think that's going to be really critical. I know we'll do our keys and our big chief and all that tomorrow, but I think turnovers are going to really tell a story in this game because Minnesota has not been able to avoid them. They turned it over 3 times, lost by 3 to Tampa Bay. They turned it over 4 times, lost by 6 to the Eagles. They turned it over twice each of the last 2 weeks in that loss to the Chargers. They had the back-breaking interception in the end zone at the very end there as one of the 2 turnovers that cost them that game. And then against the Panthers, they won last week, but they also turned it over twice, and one of those was a 97-yard pick six or whatever it was, 99 yards for Sam Franklin.
Awful throw.
No, it was hideous.
No quarterback who's played as much football as Kirk Cousins has should make that throw.
So turning this offense over is going to be, 1, possible, and 2, I think really critical to the Chiefs' success. We're going to find out. Like we said, they've got a lot of passing game weapons. The Chiefs' secondary hasn't really been tested in a major way like this. Now, I think Jacksonville had a similar collection of downfield weapons. They don't have anybody as good as Justin Jefferson, but they have a good quarterback, and they have Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley and a good tight end in Evan Ingram and like veteran guys like Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, who can get downfield. And the Chiefs locked them up. Like they played really remarkably good pass defense in that game. If they have a performance like that in them against the Vikings, that will be a major statement made by that secondary group for the Chiefs. And the other thing too is, well, how do you give your secondary a better chance of success? Get after the quarterback. And the Chiefs have mostly done a really good job of that. I don't think they were great against the Jets, but Chris Jones still had another sack, and George Karlaftis played another really good game, and Felix Anudike-Uzomah had another pressure. Like, I think that the possibility is there. If this Chiefs defense is as good as we think it is through 4 weeks, I think they'll take care of business. I think they'll win this game, and they might win it handily. But if the Chiefs defense is not, top 5 or top 10 just yet in the league, then they could have their hands full.
This is the NFL. You can never. That's why the Chiefs probably are so bad against the spread, if I had to guess, ever since the first Super Bowl back, Super Bowl 54, the 2019 season, because it's a lot of, oh my God, look at the Chiefs, look at this other team. Put all your money on the Chiefs. Obviously, they're more than 4 points better than the Minnesota Vikings, but that's just not how football works, right? Like, that's not how the NFL works, because it takes one play, one mistake. I mean, that's what has cost the Vikings. It's the one mistake in each of these games so far. It almost cost them against Carolina because they didn't even get going until the second half of that game when they also scored a defensive touchdown.
Right.
So all it has to be is one mistake. The thing about it is I like the Chiefs in this game to cause that mistake by the Vikings more so than I like vice versa, because you can just do the very basic position group by position group or matchup to matchup. Which quarterback is more likely to do something dumb that costs them the game? Kirk Cousins. Now, the Vikings pass catching weapons, dangerous, but like Chiefs defense versus Vikings offense, given the way they've trended this season, I'm probably leaning Chiefs defense.
The Chiefs defense has played better this season than the Vikings offense. There's no question about that. We had a text in from the 785 that points out that the Chiefs have not been stellar in the turnover department themselves. They've turned the ball over 8 times in 4 weeks, which isn't what you want. But let's keep in mind, let's give those numbers context. One of those is a special teams turnover, Richie James losing the punt, the Sun in Jacksonville.
Yep.
And 2 of them are interceptions thrown by Blaine Gabbert. So I don't know how much those mean to what the Chiefs offense has done. You strip those away, 5 turnovers in 4 weeks still isn't stellar, but it puts you a lot more in the middle of the pack in the league instead of like dead last, which is where the Vikings are.
We've got plenty more Chiefs talk coming up today, including our chat with Mitch Holthus at the bottom of the 5 o'clock hour, as we do every single week on Thursday afternoons here on 580 Sports Talk. Later on this hour, we will talk a lot of college football with Paul Myerberg from USA Today. We've got some more college football thoughts coming up on the other side of this break as well, right here in this 2 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. I had a couple college football thoughts I wanted to get to, but we'll touch on that a little bit later instead with Paul Myerberg when we chat with him for the Big 12 breakdown. I actually thought of this when we got a comment in on YouTube. This is from Tyler. This is a sentiment that we've shared on the show before, too. This is the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. And it got me to thinking, as it often does, what's the second best defense Patrick Mahomes has ever had?
I think it's last year's.
Is it?
I think so. The way they played down the stretch, it's either that or it's, man.
Because the second half of 2019, first half of 2019, not good. First half of the first year with Spags, historically bad year for defenses. But by the time that team got to the Super Bowl, they were balling.
Yeah, I think if you look at just like the raw measurements, you could certainly argue for 2019 they were 7th in scoring defense, 17th in yards, so total defense. Last year, 16th in points allowed, 16th in scoring defense, so right in the middle of the pack, but they were 11th in total defense. So, yeah, I think that it's a really interesting question because I think both years you have first half performance. I don't think we've seen a Chiefs defense come out of the gate like this one has.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And 2019 and 2022, you had, and not coincidentally, both championship seasons, but you had the defense really crank it up and perform at a high level in the postseason and down the stretch. I might just depend on aesthetics. Yeah,
that's fair.
What did you, which defense did you enjoy watching more? Because I think that on 2019, I'm trying to order some of the numbers here. I've got both of their pages opened up. They picked off a lot more passes in 2019. They only had 11 interceptions to the defense last year. They had 16 in 2019. Matthew had 4, Thornhill had 3. Whole bunch of guys got involved intercepting passes. Last year, though, a lot more sacks. So 55 sacks in 2022, just 45 sacks in the regular season in 2019. So I think if you like turnovers, like field flipping plays, I think 2019 is probably your answer. If you like, domination, line of scrimmage, sacking the quarterback, 2022 might be your answer. But it's interesting debate.
I'm going through some old numbers here from expected points added and where the Chiefs stacked up. So last year, the Chiefs finished the season 15th defensively in expected points added per play as a defense. And they were actually, believe it or not, based on that metric, better against the run than against the pass. I think that would surprise some people. But overall, they finished in that statistic 15th in the league in 2022. You want to take it back to 2019, and if you'll give me a moment for the numbers to load up here, including that bad start to the season, the hot finish, the Chiefs were 18th in the league. However, their raw numbers were actually better. So that was just overall a better defensive year in the NFL than last season. But the Chiefs actually finished with a lower ranking.
Sure.
There's fun with numbers for you. By the way, we were talking about TJ Hawkinson and being a bigger focal point of the offense for the Vikings. Using fantasy scoring is not the best way to determine how good a player is. But I think through 4 games, it's reasonable to say, hey, if you've got the most points in fantasy football this year at your position, you're doing something right. You are being used a lot for your team. Who has more points this year in fantasy football, Dan? Philadelphia Eagles kicker Jake Elliott or number 1 tight end Minnesota Vikings TJ Hawkinson?
I'm going to guess it's Elliott, the way you framed the question.
0.7 of a point. The number 1 kicker in football has scored more points in fantasy football this year, standard scoring, of course, than the number 1 tight end.
And that's one thing I'm not enjoying pondering these days is the shape of my fantasy football team. We are a very grim 1-3.
Right now, are we in a lull for tight end quality right now around the NFL? Like Travis Kelce is obviously he's as big a superstar as he's ever been, obviously.
I think there have been a lot of ones that have come into the league and for whatever reason, they haven't become what was expected
Kyle
that
Pitts.
they might become. Kyle Pitts, obviously. But no, I'm thinking about guys like Cole Kmet and Pat Freiermuth and Noah Fant. Like, all to varying degrees useful players. Like, those guys are going to play in the NFL for a long time. But also, like, we haven't found a new Gronk, right? We haven't found a new Travis Kelce. We're not rolling tight ends who are putting up those kinds of receiving numbers. There's not a lot of guys who are, 90 catch tight ends out there right now. You got some 50, 60 catch guys, throwbacks in a way. And maybe Sam Laporta's a 90 catch guy. He's off to a great start in his career. But yeah, we've got like functional tight ends, but we don't have a lot of superstar tight ends in the league right now. That's fair to say.
Kelce, Kittle, Andrews. Kelce, Andrews, Kittle. Like, I think it's those three, then there's a drop-off. And you're right. I mean, there's players I like. I like Evan Ingram a lot. I like Dallas Goedert. I'm just looking at tight end receiving leaders from a year ago. I don't like David Njoku. I don't think he's a very good player. Dawson Knox is a nice red zone target, but there's just not a lot of firepower there. Whereas it wasn't that long ago, we had peak Jimmy Graham and Gronk, and Martellus Bennett was putting up crazy numbers. Greg Olsen, that was probably at the tail end of when he was really good. Kelce was just starting. Don't really have that at tight end right now. Kind of an interesting thing to know.
Interesting thought, yeah.
Let's get to a break, and we'll get to our Big 12 breakdown with Paul Myerberg on the other side of this timeout right here on 580 Sports Talk. His name is Paul Myerberg. He covers all things college football for USA Today, America's newspaper. You can find him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg, and he joins us every Thursday at this time for the Big 12 Breakdown on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. Better than KU's defense, I think, but I'm good.
All right. Well, we'll get to KU in a moment because this game against UCF, there's a lot on the line here. I did want to ask, big picture to start things off. Did you learn anything about anyone in particular, or what was the biggest lesson you learned from Week 5 of the college football season in the Big 12?
Yeah, I'll take two takeaways here. One is I think OU's offense, the way they look against Iowa State, which one thing we know that we've seen from Iowa State all season is that they're pretty putrid on offense, but it get stops on defense. I thought the way they played was outstanding. It kind of set things up for Red River in a really interesting way. And I think we spoke for a little bit last week about West Virginia and TCU. I was less skeptical than I've been about West Virginia winning that game. But again, this is a tough bunch, and they're comfortable winning close games. So those are the two teams I thought in terms of being the teams of the week outside of UT. In terms of being impressive to me, West Virginia, I just think that they're saving Neil Brown's job, obviously, right now.
How amazing is that? Like, what were the odds the odds of him being the first coach to be fired in all of college football, I believe, was the shortest odds of anyone. Now, all of a sudden, it almost would make them look awful if they let him go at any point this year, save for, a 7 straight loss meltdown.
Yeah, which is possible. But yeah, I mean, I give them a lot of credit, and it's not always easy to get rid of a guy like Neil Brown because you know his track record, you know what he did at Troy, and I think they believed in him, rightfully so. Now they're winning so many games by a narrow margin, at least in an ugly style, that I am hesitant. And when you say a 7-game losing streak almost as a joke, it's not out of the absolute realm of possibility. It could happen, honestly, because all it takes is that you're -2 in turnovers or your QB is misfires 2-3 times downfield, and all of a sudden you're down 17-0 and you got no shot. But yeah, he saved his job. And what I like about West Virginia, and we don't talk about them a whole lot on this show, is that they clearly know who they are. And when you're in college football and you're in the middle of the Power 5 pack, your team's 35 through 65 in the Power 5, a lot of those guys, a lot of those teams just don't know who they are. And I give West Virginia credit. They know who they are. They don't play outside their lane. They're not as good as Kansas State, obviously, in almost every single respect, but they are a lot like Kansas State, what I've seen this season. They stay in their lane, and that's been successful for them so far. It won't win them games against Oklahoma, but it will, I think, looking at their schedule, I think this is potentially an 8-win team, and that's a heck of a good season, I think, for West Virginia based off what we've seen the last 2 or 3 years.
All right, Paul, let's get to our local teams here in Northeast Kansas. We'll start with KU, who did play this past weekend. We'll get to K-State in a little bit. Look, they got their asses kicked by Texas, and I'm not surprised that Texas won in that game. And frankly, I'm not surprised the KU offense struggled either, considering they didn't know who their starting quarterback would be until 45 minutes before kickoff. Jason Beeden didn't have time all week to prepare. I mean, he didn't play all that well, but you kind of throw your hands up and say, what are you supposed to do against a team like that on the other side? I'm willing to give him specifically a pass for this. Who you can't give a pass to is the KU defense, because they gave up 661 yards. I know Texas has firepower. I know KU is still in the bottom half of the league defensively, Paul. But, man, if you can't even stop, a team from getting over 660 in yardage, I have to imagine it builds a little more pessimism that you can hang with really anybody in the league when you are talking about facing the big dogs getting down the stretch of this schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I will say one thing about Texas. They have done this to teams all year long. Like Alabama, and I hate this phrase, Alabama was vintage game control. That was 60 minutes of game control. But Texas has been in games, and I think specifically about Wyoming and KU, where you went into halftime as the underdog, if you're the Cowboys or the Hawks, and you're thinking, okay, we're still here. We're hanging around. And then all of a sudden you look up at the end of the third and you're blown out of the water. So they do this to teams. But my takeaway for KU, 2 things. Number one, we've waited for this defensive collapse all season. We kind of felt like it was coming. It obviously is a harbinger of what you're going to see in the second half. You're going to see games like this. You're going to see absolute kind of meltdown, laid eggs on defense. And it's just obvious that this defense is nowhere near catching up with the offense. I look at Jalen Daniels. You think about a back injury. I mean, we're all old guys at this point. You tie your sneakers wrong on a Tuesday, you feel it until Thursday. And even though he's a young, athletic, incredibly, insanely athletic guy, I'm just concerned about the ramifications going down the road. When will he be healthy? Will he be healthy? because it doesn't seem to me that unless you have him at the controls, can you survive this kind of defense? So I'm more pessimistic, yeah, but maybe it would pay for us to be focused on this just specific point. Texas is very, very, very obviously a top 5 team in the country. And yeah, you got destroyed, but maybe it was Texas. And maybe it's not really about Kansas. It's about Texas. Let's give it 2 or 3 more games to see how that plays out. But yeah, disheartening. But in the end, surprising. I don't think any of us are really surprised. I mean, KU is not in that realm right now of a top 5, top 10 team. They're not ready to build. They're not built to be ready to hang with that sort of team for 6 months.
Our guest is Paul Myerberg, who covers college football for USA Today and joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Thursday at this time for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. You can check out Paul's work at USA Today. Find him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, regarding KU this Saturday, it sounds like Jason Bean is going to start. Jalen Daniels' availability still up in the air, but it is confirmed or being reported anyway that it's going to be Bean who gets the start. UCF comes to town off of an inexplicable collapse at home against Baylor last Saturday. Can KU win this game with Jason Bean under center?
Yeah, I think they can. I mean, it's obvious they can. They've won games, or at least been very competitive in games on offense with Bean under center. So I think they can win this game. And you made an interesting point going into, like, you find out an hour before kickoff that you're going to play. He's getting more first-team snaps this week. He hasn't had first-team snaps on a regular basis since last September, October, November. That's different. That helps you prepare. It helps the offense prepare. You know, you get your timing down. You get all that language down. So I think that's a big step forward. If Timmy McClain is under quarterback for UCF, I mean, he obviously had a couple of miraculous plays and had a really good first 28, 29 minutes against Baylor. If he's under center and not Plumlee, I think KU is going to win this game. I really do. Plumlee is the kind of guy, if he's healthy, if his leg is healthy, if he's able to run, I think he can give KU a lot of problems. So keep an eye on that. I'm going to pick KU to win this game with or without Daniels, because I do like the fact that KU is a tough bunch. And I think the way that they play under Leipold is that they have bounced back. So I like them to win this game, but keep an eye on the 2 QBs. I think it's going to be a tight one. I think UCF's going to be motivated. But look, KU knows they got to win this. If they lose this game, it's going to bring out a lot of the naysayers. So I like KU, and I like them close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either direction.
Kansas State enjoyed a bye week last week, and now they play tomorrow night, Friday night affair in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. And there's past history suggesting both good and bad for the Wildcats. The bad, their recent trips to Stillwater have been ugly. The good, last time they played Oklahoma State, they beat them 48-0. Also, Oklahoma State is in as much disarray as maybe any program in Power 5 right now. They're going to start Alan Bowman at quarterback. They just haven't looked good. The vibes are not great. How do you handicap this matchup? Is this a game Kansas State should be expected to handle, or is there a little fight in Gundy's bunch just yet?
Yeah, there's always fight in this group, so you don't want to say that this is going to be a second bye week in a row, but it could be. Kansas State takes care of business. This is another bye week. Oklahoma State, like you said, they can't do anything on offense. Defensively, they're just a little bit less of a mess. Kansas State's healthy. They've had a week off. I think they win this game. I think the spread right now is 12. I would be shocked if they don't win this by 14 or more. Because Kansas State, I mean, let's just get real. This is such a better football team than Oklahoma State, such a better program right now. And Kansas State obviously still in the mix for winning Big 12. Missouri feels like to me a long time ago. So yeah, this I can't even fathom what Kansas State needs to do to lose this game. And if they're just themselves and they're consistent, I like them to win this by 14, 17, 21 points. Like you said, like the last time we saw these two teams play, you saw the gap. So Oklahoma State, they might have a hidden secret. What are they waiting for? I don't understand. So I think Kansas State should win this one with relative ease for a Big 12 nighttime road game.
Let's take a look at some other games in the Big 12. It's an interesting week, and most obviously the headline game is Red River, Oklahoma, and Texas. Who needs this win more? Because I think there's a compelling argument that can be made for either side, but I'm curious, Paul, as to your perspective, who needs this win more on Saturday?
That's interesting. For me, it's undoubtedly Texas. I mean, Texas has to have this one. They've got to have this one. Oklahoma could lose this game, play competitively, show off this defense that by the metrics is elite through 5 games. they can lose this game and it's all good. I mean, obviously there's disappointment. You don't want to miss an opportunity. The final time they're going to play in the Big 8, Big 12 landscape, you don't want to lose. But for me, Texas is the one with all the pressure in the world. Because you can't help it but look at what Texas has after this. I mean, I looked at it this week, all these unbeaten teams. If they beat Oklahoma, the only team that's going to give them any sort of pressure are the Cats. I mean, that's it. And if they get by Kansas State, they're a 12-0 team going into the Big 12 championship game if they win this. If they lose this game, the margin for error that you built with Alabama is gone because you got to run the table. That means you got to beat all these teams. They're going to be aiming at you. I mean, they hate you already, and they definitely want to knock you out of the playoffs. So this, for me, is about Texas all the way. And I think specifically it's about Quinn Ewers because I trust that Venables and this defense is gonna game plan and scheme to stop him, despite the fact that they've got Baxter and Brooks in the backfield. So, yeah, to me, this is all about Texas, and this is a high-pressure moment. They showed off at Tuscaloosa, so I think they know how to handle the stage. But to me, this is all about Texas. And if they are who we think they are, guys, as the team that we saw against KU, they do win this game by 2 scores. They really do, because OU's not quite there yet, but this is high pressure. So, yeah, I really think that Texas is going to have to respond in a big, big, big way.
Do you like Texas in this matchup, or do you think that Oklahoma maybe has enough juice, and just because they haven't played anybody, that doesn't really indicate how competitive they can be in this game?
Yeah, I do like Texas in this game because we've seen what they can do when they're focused. And I think that they've got an energy and I don't want to say anger, but a drive that we have not seen from Texas in well over a decade. I mean, well over a decade. So they should win this game, but I can't shake the idea, and I've said it a few times on this show. I think Oklahoma is a lot better than people think they are. This is an opportunity for them to show that. I just don't think they're ready yet. And specifically, I don't think their offense is ready yet to keep pace with what we've seen from Texas. I mean, Ewers was so good against Kansas. Despite that pick at the end of the first half, I think that was his first of the year. I thought he played his best game as a starter at UT. So Oklahoma's got a shot, but Texas has got to play down. And I don't think that Texas is going to play down right now. They've responded every single time this season. So, yeah, I think Texas could run away with it like they did a year ago. But I don't think Oklahoma can win this without playing a near-perfect game.
A few more questions for Paul Myerberg of USA Today. It's the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Paul joining us via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline as we talk all things Big 12 football. We've got the Butt Bowl this week, Paul. Baylor, BU versus Texas Tech TT. That game will be in Waco. Who's got more to gain and who's got more to lose in this matchup? Because neither team is off to a great start, both 2-3 overall, 1-1 in league play. Texas Tech, they picked up a big win last week in a shootout against Houston. Meanwhile, Baylor is coming off a pretty darn impressive comeback win, although depending on your viewpoint, maybe it was less impressive for Baylor and more so a disaster for UCF last week. So who's got more to gain and who's got more to lose in Baylor, Texas Tech?
Yeah, UCF real quick found out the hard way that they're not playing Navy in Memphis anymore. Back in the American, you're up 28 points with 18 minutes left against those guys. You're cruising home and you're thinking about who you're going to date on Saturday night. They found out that this is a different lifestyle. To me, it's about Texas Tech. Baylor is who we thought they were. You know what I mean? Like, this is a 6-6 team, and if they get to 6-6 or 7-5 because they had that miraculous win on Saturday. Texas Tech is not where they thought they would be. They're not there where we thought they would be. We thought this would be an 8 or 9 win team. So this is an opportunity for Tech to right the ship. I think Tech at 3-3, they're feeling good about themselves at the midway point, knowing that they blew some games. So yeah, this is about Tech for me. And I think Tech does win this game. I can't get on board with Baylor, guys, because yeah, I agree with you. That win was not about Baylor, it was about UCF. So I'm still not sold on the Bears as a real team.
All right, Paul, outside of the Big 12, what game is going to grab your attention the most coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Alabama A&M is really interesting. Georgia, Kentucky obviously is one to watch. I'll give you one that I'll be watching late night into the East Coast early morning. Arizona at USC. Arizona is extremely feisty. I mean, they start slow. They started down 14-0 against Washington last week. But for about 35 to 36 minutes, they didn't just play Washington to a draw. I thought they might have been the better team for that period of time. We saw SC last week, like UCF, go up 34-7, had to fight and hold off Colorado, recover an onside kick to win 48-41. I'm already eyeballing USC losing to Notre Dame, Oregon, and Washington. I think they could lose on Saturday against Arizona. So that's one I'll be watching late night. If you're with me, and you've got some snacks and some drinks, I say we all watch that game and see if Arizona can pull off an upset.
Are all those losses just because Alex Grinch is stealing money from USC?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, guys. Like I talked about this week with a colleague. USC is going to have Caleb Williams, who is, to me, and he plays on the West Coast. We don't get to see him as much maybe as we want to. He's a transcendent QB. I put him alongside Deshaun Watson and maybe one or two other guys in the last 20 years of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. I think he's going to go to the NFL and be an all-timer. And it's like with Michael Jordan. They said Dean Smith was the only guy who could stop Michael Jordan from scoring. It might say down the road that Alex Grinch is the only guy who could stop Caleb Williams from winning a national championship. Because Alex Grinch right now, you're going to have to ask Lincoln Riley some tough questions. Why the heck did you keep Alex Grinch when you had the chance to make a change? Because you're going to cost yourself 2 years of Caleb Williams. So, yeah, Alex Grinch he's living large. I mean, he's got a tough, a lot of stress on his lifestyle, but he's living large, and he's not getting the job done by any means of the equation.
All right, Paul, last one I've got for you. We've got about 30 seconds here. Our dumpster garbage game of the week. Last week, you gave out what I will admit was a very profitable pick because somehow Arkansas State was an underdog at UMass. They won by 1 million.
What?
UMass is terrible. Some of us made a profit on that game. So, dumpster garbage pick of the week this week. Maction, Northern Illinois at Akron. Who you got?
Okay, I knew this was going to be the one of the week. This is easy. Akron is the best 1-4 group of 5 team in the country, which is like being like the most backhanded compliment that you can imagine. Akron's, I think, 2-9 in their last 11. One of those losses was to Kentucky. 7 of the other losses are like by 4 points or less. So I'm taking Akron on this one, and I take Akron to break out. Put your money down. I don't even know what the line is. I like Akron to win this one. So let's go Zip. Joe Moorhead is my guy, too. I like Joe Moorhead. So I like Akron to win this game. Huskies they used to be good. They have hit the skid.
No longer very good in DeKalb. Paul Myerberg does a better job than absolutely anybody out there covering college football. He joins us every Thursday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 breakdown. Paul, we appreciate it. Enjoy the late night football coming up on Saturday. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.
That is Paul Myerberg from USA Today. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I do not say this lightly. I like to say it, but I don't say it lightly. Alex Grinch is a football terrorist.
He should coach with the ski mask on.
Yes, that is absolutely true. We've got to get to the news. We'll come on back here from Steve Spagnuolo and Matt Nagy right here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, just getting started. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on the program. Your texts are welcome at 785-272-9429 and your comments on YouTube as well. YouTube channel is called 580 Sports Talk. You can watch the video version of the show on YouTube and hang out in the comments section. Busy day for all the folks out there watching along with us. Appreciate you watching on YouTube, listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, or online around the world at 580WIBW.com. You heard just moments ago our spooky word of the hour for our 580 WIBW Ghost Your Bills contest. Again, the keyword for the 3 o'clock hour is party, P-A-R-T-Y. So if you would like your chance to win $2,000 a day with our Ghost Your Bills competition, head on over to 580WIBW.com. We have a post up on the website. All you have to do is click on that. You'll be taken to a screen where you have to enter the keyword. Type in party, hit return, enter, go, whatever, and you will be entered to win $2,000 a day from the Ghost Your Bills competition. The keyword is only good for which the hour or in the hour it is announced in. So party is only an eligible word during the 3 o'clock hour. So from now through 3:59:59, you can go enter that at our website, 580WIBW.com. Also, do not forget, you must be 18 years or older to play the Ghost Your Bills competition. Coming up here in this 3 o'clock hour of the show, Rick Peterson will join us coming up in just a little bit for this week's Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. We'll play some either or over under, and mine comes from a video that I saw earlier today that I've got to be honest, horrified me because I suddenly feel so much worse about my favorite team starting quarterback. So much worse about Jordan Love as the future of the Green Bay Packers. And that's going to come up in either or over under a little bit later today. But first things first, let's hear a little bit from the offensive and defensive coordinators from the Kansas City Chiefs. Where should we go first, Dan? Should we go Spags or Nagy first?
Let's go Spags first.
All right, we'll hear about the defense. That defense is playing lights out right now for the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's hear what Steve Spagnuolo had to say about his unit when he spoke to the media a little bit earlier on today. Here's Steve Spagnuolo.
All right, game 5 on to Minnesota. I don't really have anything, so I'll just open it up. What's your role? This one here?
Yeah.
I think this was back from COVID, right? It takes all of us when the injustice was, yeah.
Yes.
And the other one, yeah. I don't know. It was in my locker. I threw it on today.
Justin Jefferson
Yeah.
facing him.
Yeah. It seems like we've got one of these highly rated, exceptional wideouts every week, it seems like. He's the real deal. One of the things we looked at these last couple of days is when he catches the ball, if you're not really good at what we call angles to the completion point, he can make you all look bad, take it to the house. He's a competitor. He's a guy we got to be concerned about.
You had luxurious seemingly fell around the opponent's top weapon.
Yeah.
It's fair to say that this could be the tallest challenge that he's kind of got up with.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, to me, it's always whatever week you're in, that's the tallest challenge, right? But listen, he's proven that he's an elite wide receiver in this league. And, you know, we won't always be able to get LJ on him. They move him around enough. They got him inside. So there'll be some times when that won't happen. But it'll be a good battle if they end up, you know, across the line of scrimmage.
Steve, y'all started off, feels like every game with Big Nickel, Shamari coming out and starting out there. Just what impact does that give him and give the defense open up the game? Yeah,
listen, what we've been trying to do, I really like Shamari and the way he plays. He's physically, I thought he tackled really, really well this past game. And we'll get him in there when we think it's right or whatever package we're calling or whatever, you know, to tie it into the calls without getting into the whole thing, right? But I like it when he's out there. It allows us to keep Trent outside and LJ outside, so that's one advantage. But we'll see how every game goes. Sometimes in the middle of the game, we change that for different reasons. But it's nice to have different packages and guys that you can trust to go in there. And I like the fact that, you know, so he's a rookie, right? But every game he's kind of gotten a little bit of an experience. So, you know, somewhere down the road here, we're going to get an ankle turn or if something's going to happen, we're going to need guys to go out there. So at least he's got a little experience on this belt.
What do you see with Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I've always been a Kirk Cousins fan. I remember, and I don't normally watch quarterbacks in college or not concerned, but I remember Michigan State being really elite and doing a real good job there. And then when he came into the league, I remember him being in Washington I remember I kind of follow his whole career. I think he's a class guy, and he's a cerebral quarterback that's very accurate. And really, other than the turnovers that they've had, this has been a really highly productive offense. I mean, if they hadn't turned the ball over like they had, they're pretty tough to stop. So that's what we're focused on. We can't guarantee that we're going to get turnovers. So the challenge for us is to try to keep points off the board.
Is there a style to the McVay offshoots? Do you see?
Yeah.
I know we're old enough to go back to the West Coast offense.
Yeah, when it was called.
Is there a
There's a little carryover, and Kevin was in. I'm pretty sure he was in LA when we played them last. So maybe he's brought. There's some things you see that are the same, but I think every coordinator puts his little tweaks into it, and he's got different personnel, right? But I think they're doing a really good job with what they got.
Steve, I know our receivers are different, and you guys have faced, or at least your young guys have faced, the Devontae Adams, and Diggs, and Jamar Chase. Is there any benefit that they've already faced those top receivers like that?
I think so. I mean, I think every game you can get under your belt the experience of going against an elite wideout. It feels like I said, it feels like every team has one, right? I think that's the way offenses are being built now, and I think they have more than just that.
Right.
The young kid that they have, number 3, he can go. We got to be concerned about that. I tell you what throws a whole wrinkle in the whole thing is how good the tight end is. It's really hard to put a lot of attention on a wideout and a tight end. It's tough to do. You got to pick your spots, and we've had similar challenges. We would play the Raiders in years back, right, with Waller and Adams or whoever. But I do, in answer to your question, I do think that our guys, every time they get a chance to go against an elite receiver, that includes the safeties, not just the corners and nickels. I think they try to rise to the challenge, and hopefully we can do the same thing this week.
What's the potential return of Nick mean for you guys?
Yeah, Nick's done a little bit of work here. I don't know if we're at that point yet. I'm probably going to be right down to the end of the week. But I know he's chomping at the bit. I don't know if you guys have talked to him, but he's a competitor, and I don't think he likes standing on the sideline and watching the guys out there playing. So if he can go, he'll go. But we'll see where we are at the end.
Our guys
I know you moved on to this next week, but how just would you assess the overall defense Sunday night?
Well, I will say this. I'm going to turn. I listened to a couple of our own guys say, I got to give Zach Wilson a lot of credit for the way he played. It's not that we didn't expect that to happen, but we were hoping to make him look a little more average. But he put the ball in the right spots. I thought we had pretty decent coverage. I thought LJ did a pretty good job on, what was their top or elite receiver. We just needed to make a play or two here to take it from 18 points down to 10 or whatever it is. But it was a good, gritty, gutty win. I'm talking about as a team. But, from a defensive standpoint, we had to keep hanging in there and swinging, until our offense got going, and we just got just enough points to win the game. So good to get the win.
Are you seeing the confidence? I mean, a lot of times it's been the offense shines, and we've had times where you're in here going like, well, we want to have one of those wins where it was us.
Yeah, right.
You've had those this year.
Yeah.
You see a pep in the step. Does it do anything for confidence?
I think so. You have to ask the players. I mean, I get the blinders on, so one game's over and I'm into the next one. But, listen, our guys are human. I said this to them Saturday night. We do a little walkthrough on Sunday before the game when we play at night. And I said, just keep the 2 C's. I said this to them. And the 2 C's to me were, let's just make sure we keep our chemistry and our confidence. So I felt like that was part of what we had for 3 games. And don't let anything take that away. Not a bad call, not a bad play, not the fact that we get down or if we get too far up. And so I think we play better defensively when we play like that. So I hope that's building.
Brian Cook had what felt like maybe a game-saving tackle.
Exactly. That's exactly that was the first clip I showed on Tuesday when we met with him, because I thought that was huge. I mean, usually you're saying, okay, that saved 4 points. That really saved 7 because we ended up stopping them in that drive. I think they had the punt, right? I'm not sure they attempted a field goal, right? Because I think they had a penalty, and then that was huge. And we had watched a clip of number 20 run that same play against Buffalo down and backed up. And he was gone. They caught him at the 10-yard line. But that deep safety didn't make that same play. And we just said, if we get in that situation, somebody's got to get him on the ground. On that play, if you guys go back and look at it, Willie was involved in coming off the edge. And if you watch the whole play, had Brian got him to stumble just a little bit and missed him, Willie was going to run all the way down there and maybe makes a I just thought the effort by Willie Gay on that play was huge. It didn't come into play because Brian got him on the ground, but yeah, you got to do that. No, thank God he made it, right?
Just in talking about the safeties, when you have a potential blue chip tight end, blue chip wide receiver, how important does maybe an elevated does the communication safety wise as far as help?
Yeah, the biggest thing with the tight end to me is know where he is all the time. This guy that we're talking about, I mean, he's nifty. I don't know how much man will play. We mix it, right, man and zone. But whoever's called upon to play, and make sure, we always say, make sure you win your leverage. Like if you've got help inside, don't get beat outside, or vice versa. So little things like that against a really elite tight end, I think, are really important.
A couple more. Just how far is Brian Cook along, just in terms of second-year safety?
Yeah, I thought he made a jump from game 3 to 4. We worked Mike Edwards in there a little bit. We kind of getting both of those guys going. I think it's good to get going back. Same thing with Chamari. Like all these guys, I mean, Jack has gotten some reps, right? Leo's in there. I mean, I think that's good that was the intent early to get everybody a foundation of reps. As we get later in the season, we're going to need everybody. And but getting back to Brian Cook, I think each game he's gotten better and better. And it was kind of evident by that one play. It was pretty indicative of his improvement.
Coach, this isn't, you guys obviously had great success against the run other than that one play.
Yeah.
You were talking about, but watch Isaiah Pacheco. He runs so physical and takes the punch to the other team.
Yeah.
When you play a physical back, can they wear you out? Can they soften you? I asked Coach Reed, is it like a body blow in boxing?
Yeah.
Keep getting hit. Eventually it opens things up. I mean, do you see that?
I think that can happen in any league. I remember, I think it was Lou Holtz. Don't quote me on this, but or somebody that worked for Lou Holtz. Phil Almazian, I think was his name. You guys don't even, but he coached for Lou. You know the name? Yeah, and I think he said he was a coordinator, and I think at Virginia Tech, one of those schools. And I remember him saying, this is when I was a young coach, saying, when they run the ball on you, you got 11 peed off players because they ran the ball, right? When they throw the ball, it's just, you're upset on the back end. So when somebody's running the ball at you and they're running and they can continue to run it, I mean, it upsets everybody. I mean, you have to be able to stop that first. So yeah, the teams that have a kind of back like we do, that's running straight at people could be you got to stop it early, right? So that they don't keep going to it. That's the hope.
That's Steve Spagnuolo, Chiefs defensive coordinator, speaking earlier this afternoon in Kansas City. That line at the end about, it might have been Lou Holtz. Maybe it was someone who worked for Lou Holtz. It reminded me of the Mitch Hedberg line about, I've never met Peter Frampton, or
I never smoked. I never
smoking fake weed with Peter Frampton, which is a lot less fun than smoking real weed with a guy who looks like Peter Frampton.
I've done that way more.
One of the all-time greats, R.I.P. Mitch Hedberg. From the defense to the offense, let's hear what Matt Nagy had to say today during his press conference at One Arrowhead Drive.
It seems that plays in the favor of what you guys, or at least Patrick, likes to see. Just overall, what you see out of this Minnesota defense, that there could be some points of attack.
Yeah, they do. They can play a bunch of different coverages. I think you look at the DNA of Coach Flores as a defensive coordinator, and he's always wanted to present some type of challenge with pressure, whether it's bringing a lot of people or not bringing many people. Coverage techniques, whether it's man, cover 0, cover 2, cover 3, all of it. He does it all. And I think he does a good job of creating an identity with their defense. And now this is his first year there with those guys and learning kind of how they want to do their stuff. But again, pretty much like any defense in this league, it all starts on the front end. And they got some guys there that can get after the quarterback. And I think you match those guys up with the scheme on the back end and the players that they have, they can be a very, very good defense.
Matt, it's pretty clear from a couple times we've talked with Patrick that he doesn't think he played very well on Sunday night. What's he like in the film room? And I'm wondering if any play in specific that he comments on when he doesn't think that he plays fast.
Well, it's pretty evident when you're in that moment in the game and he had those 2 throws he had, he's more frustrated than anybody that he made them. And we know that that's not normally him. I think in a somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek joking matter, you can remember this kid is human still. You know what I mean? And so there are times when you can make mistakes and some that are like that. So in that moment in the game, we all just got to get back together and say, okay, listen, this is where we're at. This is what we know we want to do moving forward after these 2 picks. He's going to be harder on himself than anybody, criticizing-wise himself. And so now it's like, okay, get by that point. Now let's get into the plays and why we made the decisions or throws we made. And then how do we not do that moving forward, but yet still keep that aggressive attacking mentality that he's always had.
I'm sure some of those are pretty obvious in the moment, right? Or at least afterwards, he probably knows immediately, hey, I can't do that. So how does that translate to like the following week when I assume a lot of your coaching is young wide receivers trying to get them in to see defense is the right spot? When I already knows this mistake, like how would the coach?
Well, you rely on Patrick just being a savvy vet, knowing where he made the mistake of, or, again, like I said, there's been a lot of unbelievable quarterbacks that have made some throws that you wonder, how they made it or why they made it. And he's allowed to have a couple of those every now and then. And that happened to be a game where again, he had 2 throws where right away one he knew. He just said, that's on me. Like I pulled the string and the ball just kind of floated. And the second one, the linebacker got underneath second, third level underneath the deep cross, and the kid made a good play. So to us as coaches, it's like you sit there and you say, okay, we know that decision-wise what to do. We know you can make every throw in the book. Now let's get back to this week in practice. Let's get back to the defense we're about to see. Let's get back to timing with our wide receivers. Keep working that and understand that he's a true pro, and he's going to use our coaching to help him get better and eliminate what was last week with those 2 throws. Because Patrick's harder on himself than anybody. Even right after the game, hey, I put us in that situation with the field position, et cetera, with those throws. And he knows that, and you don't need to, beat it down. We just move on from it and learn.
Coach, as a follow-up to that, he used the term greedy.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I got greedy in those. Can you and Andy get a little greedy maybe in some of the stuff you're running, or is there's a conservative option on every single play?
Well, we have a plan to what we're doing with the players, with the scheme, with the play calls. I think probably in how the moment of the game is going, being able to, you look at that game, we just weren't staying on the field. And the first quarter we went right down, scored a few touchdowns, got a lead. Then we hit a lull where we just had a turnover, 1-play turnover, 3-play safety. And so we weren't getting into a rhythm. So sometimes naturally you can want to get back into that rhythm by downfield stuff, but sometimes they're not going to give that to you. And so whether it's us as coaches or Patrick as a decision maker with the football in his hand every play, how do we slowly get back to doing what we do? And that's sometimes by not being greedy and by taking what the defense gives you. And then when they come up, then we go over the top. So there's a little bit of a balance. It's a little bit of the game flow. And I think we're all a part of that.
I understand that
there's been times where it seems like Patrick has an eternity to throw, which is a great play by the offensive line. But are your wide receivers doing enough to help him out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's again to that question, is it drop 8? Are they rushing 3 where there's a lot of time and now there's more guys defending the routes? Or is it a rush 4 pattern? And now it's the line's doing a good job of passing off games, and now we got less guys in the zone areas. But this is for our wide receivers, for Patrick, for our tight ends, for us as coaches. This part of the season, we feel like we're starting to really learn who these guys are as wide receivers. And I don't know if you're, week to week, this isn't necessarily the offense or the type of offense with the players where you're going to see one guy that has 18 targets every week. That's just not us. And it's always kind of been that way over time. There's been some outliers here or there with our offense, but I think that's the beauty of the offense too, is we got a lot of different guys that are learning how to play wide receiver within this offense, and we're learning who they are. So it's just a little bit of both, and then just continuing to grow so that when we get to the end of the season, man, we're rolling.
And understanding you guys have plans for young players, I think on this side we always get a lot of questions about Justin Ross and just where he's at. So in that frame, what does he have to do to kind of earn more playing time?
Just keep doing what he's doing in practice, which is working hard and trying to learn the different positions in the offense. We're learning what routes he does well. He's learning what routes he can get better at. And then we got to, as coaches and teachers, we got to develop him and continue to make him be better. And then when you get an opportunity, whenever that is, whether that's today, this weekend, or in 5 weeks from now, make the most of it. And his attitude's been phenomenal. He's very talented. let's just keep developing him as coaches.
That is Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy speaking a little bit earlier today as the Chiefs gear up to take on the Minnesota Vikings. 3:25 coming up on Sunday. You'll be able to hear that game with pregame starting at 2 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW. Coming up later this hour, we'll move to some high school football, and we'll chat with Rick Peterson of TopSports.news in our high school Whiparound. But first, on the other side of this break, we'll play this week's round of either or over under right here on 580 Sports Talk. Either or over under time here on 580 Sports Talk. Brenton and Dan with you. All right, so earlier today, there's going to be a big lead up to this actual question because I'm still kind of reeling from it. So earlier today, in fact, shortly before we went on the air, saw a video that was being shared. Some social media company team, I don't really know who they are, but they apparently went to a Packers tailgate recently. And they did a little quick video for social media with the handful of wives, girlfriends, fiancés of Packers players. And they asked them, what is your partner's beige flag? Have you ever heard of this term before?
I have not heard the term beige flag. That's a new one on me.
So a red flag is like, whoa, this can't happen because you have a past or whatever, like a red flag.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a red flag.
A beige flag is more of a, dude, are you serious kind of thing? Like, not a deal breaker, but like, dude, come on. That's a beige flag. That's how I've pieced it together. So some of them, maybe not as bad as some others. You had AJ Dillon's wife who said he can't cook. He is unable to cook. Christian Watson's fiance said that he is the baby of his family and just everyone treats him like the youngest in the family. Like very much plays up that role.
Mm-hmm.
Devondre Campbell's wife said that he escapes her and their kids on the toilet and will just sit there for like hours just to like be alone and hide there.
Yeah, if I were her, I've seen the clip. If I were her, I'd be asking more questions.
Yes.
And I might be asking if I can see the phone.
That's probably fair. That's definitely fair. Then you had Royce Newman's fiance who said he spends more time on her hair than she does. He's got a mullet. It's not the best mullet I've ever seen, but I can imagine it takes some work. And then he had Jordan Love's girlfriend who said that he's ticklish, but he doesn't call it being ticklish. He calls it, and I'm not kidding, having silly body. So which is more alarming to you in a potential partner? They are unable to do something very basic, like being able to cook, or they have one quirk that is just so bizarre and weird that you can't get over it. Which is more, dude, what the hell?
Lacking a basic skill or having a bizarre quirk? Which one? I don't know. I would say probably I'd be more alarmed like if Abby lacked a basic skill of like human life, like being able to cook, or like not being able to clean, or not being able to, put gas in her car or something like that. Like basic rudimentary skills, those would bother me more than, oh, I have this silly word that I use instead of saying that I'm ticklish. Silly, I don't know. Silly body is kind of funny to me. I'm not gonna lie.
I cringed so hard. I thought my bones were gonna pop out of my skin when I heard that.
You know what the biggest beige flag was in that entire video? The way some of those women say the word flag. I know it's very northern Midwest to say flag.
So
beige flag.
I don't know where Christian Watson is from originally,
but he went to North Dakota State.
And I'm imagining
and he plays for the Packers.
Yeah, okay, he's from Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining his fiance Lakin is probably from North Dakota or Minnesota. My fiance is beige flag.
Flag.
What? Excuse me? I didn't know what she said at first.
That
a what?
Minnesota, like that Minnesota Dakota's accent is like bottom 2, and it ain't 2. It troubles me.
Well, and even Devondre Campbell's wife, like I'm certain he is not from the upper Midwest. I doubt she is. He's only been with the team for 3 years. She sounded like she was from Fargo.
Yeah.
What?
So where did he go to school?
That's a great question.
Because yes, seeing
he went to Minnesota.
Okay, yes.
He went to UM. Okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense.
So without knowing anything about Devondre Campbell other than plays for the Packers, like that was probably enough to explain like the nature of his significant other maybe not being what you would expect. But no, man, that accent is alarming. Like it just it throws me for a loop every single time.
It was so funny. AJ Dillon's wife is from Boston. Like that's a whole different accent that has become the Wisconsin, Minnesota accent.
I mean, he went to Boston College. So like it all makes sense. Like that's where a lot of people meet their wives, is in college.
So funny though. Silly bot. I'm gonna watch him drop back on 3rd and 4 on Monday night and think about that. They won't be able to focus on the play. What do you got for this week?
Know his teammates are going to give him grief.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to make this one hurt.
Oh, great.
I'm going to guarantee you one thing, but I'm also going to guarantee you another thing in return. So this is an either or.
Okay.
Either I can guarantee you that Kansas football wins the Big 12, but KU basketball misses the next 2 NCAA tournaments. Or I can guarantee you a Final Four, but I also guarantee you that Lance Leipold will be the next coach at Michigan State.
Oh, Jesus, man. I think it's got to be win the Big 12. There are KU fans who will disagree with me on that. I mean, in fact, probably a lot of KU fans will disagree with me on that. But KU basketball shortly thereafter will recover. Like 2 years after of consecutive missing the NCAA tournament, you've never seen the NIL bags that KU would be giving out after that. And KU would rebound for certain. It took 15 years for KU to rebound in football most recently. So I think I would probably lean with that, just knowing the track record of the programs. That's tough, though, man. That's a good one. That's really tough. It's hard to pass up a Final Four. Those are fun.
Yeah,
Got to experience a few of those. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, and I'm not promising anything after. KU could win the national title in basketball, or they could lose in the Final Four.
Yeah.
KU football could be in the playoff if they win the Big 12, or they just go to a different, really nice bowl game. Like, I'm not guaranteeing anything after that. I'm just guaranteeing you that level of accomplishment with a little give back in the other revenue sport.
That's tough. I think that I'm like 70% sure that's what I'm going with. I might need time to finalize that answer, though. We're going to take that time with this commercial break. On the other side of this timeout, we'll be joined by Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Week 6 of the high school football season is upon us. It begins tonight at Hummer Sports Park. We'll talk about that game and everything coming up tomorrow night as well. Up next in the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is the great Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. He covers all things high school sports and some Washburn sports as well. For TopSports.news, head to the website for all of our best coverage of our local teams. And you can also find Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, can you believe we are already entering week 6 of the high school football season?
Yeah, it's really flown by. And, here we are 3 weeks and we'll be in the playoffs. So, yeah, it's going crazy.
Man, that is absolutely unbelievable. Well, we've got a lot of action to get to. And let's start with some action going on tonight at Hummer Sports Park. It is the de facto Meadowlark Conference Championship game. 4-1 Highland Park, 5-0 Atchison. That's a really darn good Atchison team. We're going to have this game on our airwaves, 7 o'clock tonight, 6:45 pregame, brought to you by Lewis Toyota. This is an uphill test for Highland Park, Pistol. We know that they lost to Atchison last year. They lost in decisive fashion to a really good Lincoln Prep team from Kansas City a week ago. What is Highland Park going to have to do to score a win over this very talented Atchison team tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to take control early. You got to make them chase instead of you trying to chase because, I don't think Scots are quite as explosive as they were last year when they had Trey Richardson. So, you gotta kind of maybe grind it out a little more. So I think they really need to take control early, especially at home.
This would be, and obviously last year the win over Wyandotte was the most significant win because it snapped that long losing streak. And they have had big wins already this year and last year as well. But this would feel, to me at least, Pistol, like it's maybe one of the most significant wins of the Jermaine Monroe era should Highland Park pull it off. Would you feel the same way?
Yes, most definitely. And I think, first of all, win or lose tonight, what a great turnaround they've had.
Yep.
And I just like what Jermaine Monroe is doing with this team. And but yeah, everybody needs that landmark win. Everybody needs that next step, so to speak. And that would be that for Highland Park.
Let's go to some of the other smaller programs. We've started most of this season on our Thursday Chats, Pistol, with some of the bigger classes. Let's start with some of the smaller programs, though, and some 8-man action from the city this past weekend. You want to talk about a significant win. How about Care Paravel taking down Burlingame, handing the Bearcats their first loss of the season? I think pretty easily, Pistol. That is the biggest win for Care Paravel yet since they became a Acacia full member.
Since they became Acacia, yeah, that's right, because they won a championship, but it wasn't in Acacia. And it was. And I was out at their practice yesterday, and they were back at work. I mean, they know that they're in such a tough district, and they're going to be in such a tough district when they go to 11-man. So every week's a new challenge. And this is a playing a Madison program that's got good tradition is going to be another challenge for them. But they were bouncing around yesterday. You can tell they're feeling good about themselves and ready to go to work.
And it feels, Pistol, like this game in particular for Care Paravel has a lot riding on it. For Madison, they're 0-1 in district play so far. They really need a win. Care Paravel sitting at 1-1. You pick up that second win and still with games, and I got to pull up their schedule here, still with a couple of big games on the schedule, including Cottonwood Falls, Chase County in a couple of weeks. Getting a win here on Friday night, I think, would do wonders for getting Care Paravel into the postseason.
They were very disappointed. Doug Monroe was very disappointed that they didn't make the playoffs last year. Since day one, he's talked to me about trying to make the playoffs this year. So you're exactly right. You got to put yourself, and I think you want to put yourself in a position where you don't necessarily have to win that last game to make the playoffs. Get yourself a good start towards that and then try to finish it off.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. It's the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Go follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And, of course, check out all of his great work covering our local teams at TopSports.news. Outside the city, but in the county last week, Pistol, it was our Lewis Toyota Game of the Week. I know you made an appearance in Rossville as well. The War on 24 for the second year in a row goes the way of the Silver Lake Eagles. Logan Pegram has still never lost as a player or coach at Silver Lake against Rossville, 7-0 in his career now. And what a win for the Eagles, too, Pistol. I know that that's a good Rossville team. They're a bigger team than Silver Lake, but when you've got guys like Tanner Martin and Blake Redmond putting up numbers on both ends like they did last week, you're not going to lose many games if you're Silver Lake.
Well, those two you just mentioned kind of put that team on their back because they're beat up. I mean, that team's beat up, including those two. They're all kind of nursing some injuries. And when they walked out to warm up last week, I mean, it seemed like about 10 of them in street clothes, including Eli Barnes, who's easily one of their best players. So for them to do what they did with that situation in mind was very impressive.
How do you think this Silver Lake team stacks up with much of 2A? And really, when is the last time that there is a team that has been as successful as this one is this year? That's kind of a tongue twister kind of question there, Pistol, so I apologize. Essentially, when was the last time Silver Lake was this good?
Well, they were, it hasn't been that long. I mean, they've always been good. To make a deep run in the playoffs, it was probably one of CJ's last year's, but they're the thing about it is they expect that, and so I think they're just looking at it as, hey, we're going to do what Silver Lake does, and we're going to put ourselves back in the title picture, and I think they can. I think they really need to get some guys healthy, because when you're a 3A, 2A type program, you don't have a ton of kids to begin with, so they need to have their weapons healthy. But if they are in good health, the guys you just mentioned, Tanner Martin and Blake Redmond, give you a chance. And then you hope you got some others that get well, and you can go to them as well, like an Eli Barnes. But I think they expect to do well. And I was over by their locker room after that game last Friday, and they just seemed really confident and really ready to do more.
All right, Pistol, let's move up a class here. The Hayden Wildcats in Class 3A. How about back-to-back shutout wins? You want to combine their wins against Jeff West and Perry LeCompton, 81-0 in the last 2 weeks. For the entire season, Hayden's allowing just 7.4 points a game. They're on a roll. The big game on the schedule is still a week away. It'll be Holton next week at home at Hayden. This game against Royal Valley, this is a Royal Valley team that's fighting hard. I know their head coach, David Boucher, is putting a lot of work into that program, but you would imagine Hayden probably a decent-sized favorite in this contest coming up tomorrow.
They are. I expect them to probably be without Finn Dunshee, so they're going to have some other guys step up, but they have the guys to do that. And like you said, hey, defense wins championships, and they're playing great defense. But I think what they'll want, I think what Bill Arnold and his coaching staff will want to do tomorrow night is keep it going, so to speak. Don't take any steps back. Go out, take care of your business, and then don't worry about Holton until Holton week.
Let's get to the Class 6A showdown in the Centennial League in the city coming up tomorrow, Pistol. It'll be at Bowen Clay Stadium, Washburn Rural hosting Topeka High. High just continuing to go through that unbelievable gauntlet of a schedule they're dealing with. They had to take on one of the best teams in the state, Wichita Northwest, this past Friday. Washburn Rural with a very impressive win against Junction City. They scored 4 touchdowns. Only one was on offense in a 28-7 win. They are playing white-hot football right now. This is going to be a tough matchup for Topeka High, obviously. What do you think is going to be the X factor, biggest difference maker in this contest?
Well, I mean, let's just face it. I mean, Washburn Rural's got the deeper, more talented team, and they really are, like you said, are playing great on defense, playing great on special teams. Anytime you score 3 defensive/special teams touchdowns, you're doing a lot of things right. It's going to be an uphill battle for Carlos's team, but they just need to continue to try to improve. What they need to do is get to next year. And what I mean by that is maybe have a fairer, and I hate to say this, but more fair schedule, because this has been kind of unfair for them the last 2 years, I would venture to say.
When it comes to this Washburn Rural team, I mean, they've got as many good wins as anybody, with wins in back-to-back weeks over Manhattan and against a very solid, as always, Junction City team. How do you think Pistol Washburn Rural stacks up to the rest of the best teams in Class 6A? Manhattan is obviously still in that discussion. Lawrence Free State's 5-0 on the year. Gardner Edgerton considered by many to be the #1 team in all classes in Kansas high school football this season. How do you think Rural stacks up with those other powers in 6A?
I think they give themselves a chance because of what we just talked about. I mean, they can score any way, on defense, on special teams, on offense, and that gives you a chance. And also, and I'll hammer it again, defense wins championships, and I don't know that anybody's playing better defense than them right now. So they give themselves a chance, but there's always in 6A 5 or 6 teams that you got to look at. And I think they're just one of those 5 or 6 teams, and they want to, but they've already taken a couple big steps with the back-to-back wins over Manhattan and Junction.
We're previewing the Week 6 high school football slate with Rick Peterson of TopSports.news. It's our Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound on 580 Sports Talk. All of Pistol's great work can be found at TopSports.news, and you can find him on Twitter as well, where his handle is at Peterson_Rick. All right, Pistol, just a couple of games left to get to, and we appreciate the time as always. Number 1, let's start with our Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week coming up tomorrow night. It'll be at Lester Wetter Field in Tecumseh. Shawnee Heights 3-2. Great start to the season, including that thriller of a win over Seaman in Week 3. They dropped the last 2 against a very proud Baser Linwood program and a dang good DeSoto team. They take on 4-1 Wamego, a Red Raiders team that beat Shawnee Heights a season ago. What is Shawnee Heights going to have to do to take down a team in Wamego that is very well coached and extremely athletic on both sides of the ball?
They're going to have to control the ball. I think, hopefully Alan Bowman is back at full strength now, and they need to ride him as much as possible. And then, and then with their cast of receivers, you can almost control the ball if you're Shawnee Heights with short out routes, with short passes, with screens, whatever. And they can do, they can control the ball that way and have more weapons than just Alan Bowman. But I think they really do need to control the ball. You don't want the Red Raiders to be controlling the ball. You want to have them on their heels a little bit.
Huge game in the United Kansas Conference, and I say that ignoring what the records are specifically. Turner is 0-5. Topeka West is 0-5. This game will be at Hummer Sports Park coming up tomorrow. But, Pistol, I think it's fair to say this is Topeka West's best shot at a win. And I will just put this out there because we saw West last week at Hummer when they just came up a little bit, well, not more than a little bit short when they lost to Lansing. But I'm riding Josh Nitschke as long as I possibly can because that dude can play. And if I'm Topeka West, I'm finding any way possible I can get the ball in number 7's hands.
I agree with that. And I also think they should go into that game mad. And I could think of some other words, but mad. and I know Trey Parker's going into that game mad because I thought some things happened last week that shouldn't happen. Onside kick, 36-0, throwing the ball the whole way. And you just gotta handle it that way. You just gotta come back and prove that no teams are going to be able to do that to you going forward. And I think that loss last week could actually help West going into tomorrow night.
Final one we've got to take a look at for tomorrow night, Pistol, another United Kansas Conference matchup. Seaman taking on Leavenworth. Seaman had a really tough time against Blair Oaks, Missouri this past week, a team that plays just south of Jefferson City. Seaman's season took a little bit of a turn when they took on Shawnee Heights a few weeks ago, that game you mentioned earlier. They haven't won since. Is this a get-right game for Jared Swafford's Vikings, you think?
It could be. But I also want to say I think Leavenworth is better than they've been. I think Leavenworth is an improved team, and so it's not going to be a gimme by any means. I do really like the way Max Huston's throwing the ball, and I think if you could throw the ball and he has a good night tomorrow night, I think they put themselves in position. You mentioned it. Yeah, they really need this win because, the more weeks you go without a win, the tougher it gets, no matter who you're playing.
Rick Peterson does a better job than absolutely anybody at covering all of our local high school teams and Washburn-Ichabod's athletics, and he does so for TopSports.news. Go check out his work there. Check him out on Twitter as well, at Peterson_Rick. He joins us every Thursday at this time for our Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound, now with no more Royals interruptions until next spring, so we're very excited about that. Pistol, what does your schedule look like this weekend?
Well, I'll be with you tonight. And then I'm going to go out and see Rural tomorrow just because I have not seen Topeka High and I need to see them. So there'll be some great games coming up.
We can't wait for it. Pistol, we'll see you tonight. Enjoy the football this weekend, my friend.
Thank you.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news and the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. And again, double feature action Thursday and Friday night. High school football sponsored by Lewis Toyota here on the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations. Tonight, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff right here on 580 WIBW. Dan Lucero and yours truly will be in the booth as Highland Park takes on Atchison in a massive tilt in the Meadowlark Conference. And then tomorrow night over on Country 106.9, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff, our Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week as Shawnee Heights takes on Wamego in a major non-league matchup here in Week 6. Coming up on the other side of our national and local news, we'll talk a little college football weekend right here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, halfway home on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We're with you until 6 o'clock this evening, followed by some 580 Sports Talk overtime, and then high school football presented by Lewis Toyota. A major tilt in the Meadowlark Conference, effectively the league title game in the Meadowlark as Highland Park takes on Atchison. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff. Dan Lucero on the call. Yours truly on the color commentary tonight here on 580 WIBW. Really looking forward to this one. We haven't gotten to see Highland Park yet this year, and this is their biggest game of the season. I know they played a really good Lincoln team from Kansas City, Missouri last week. Non-league game, non-state game, technically. This is the biggest game in the league this year, so really, really excited for this one.
Last year was a track meet, Atchison outlasting Highland Park 70-56. Atchison continues to score big this season. Highland Park, not so much. They missed Trey Richardson, who was a one-of-a-kind player that they had the last 4 years there at Highland Park. But Highland Park's defense has been much improved this year. So I expect a very different kind of game. Like, I would take under 126. If that's what you were offering me. I don't think we're going to see a basketball score up on the scoreboard at Chuck Lauer Field at Hummer Sports Park tonight. I think that it will be very interesting to see how this one plays out.
Should be a fun one, though. You know Highland Park's going to be hungry. After losing to them last year on the road and losing last week, they're going to be game for this one. And I know Jermaine Monroe, their head coach, told you offense looking pretty good going into this game.
Yes, they had a good week of practice on offense. But it's interesting. He made the point when I spoke with him earlier today, and you'll hear the full conversation on our pregame show at Lewis Toyota Thursday Night Football, that last year they maybe came into this game a little too hyped, that they had an opportunity to go win a league championship and all of that. This year, they're kind of setting that to the side, just focusing on process and worrying about what it means to win once they win. Other than, you know, a bit of a different approach, a bit of a more focused, more business-like approach this year from these Highland Park players.
We're looking forward to that one. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff right here on 580 WIBW. Here in this hour of the program, we're going to talk some college football in just a few moments. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. And we'll hear from KU wide receiver Luke Grimm, the best receiver KU's got. We're huge fans of him on the show. Hear about last week's game against Texas, his relationship with both quarterbacks for KU, and it sounds like it's going to be Jason Bean this week. We'll talk about that coming up in headlines in the 5 o'clock hour today. But a lot to get to with Luke Grimm coming up at the bottom of the hour. Plus, your texts. Our text line number is 785-272-9429. And, of course, the YouTube comment section wide open all day long. You can watch the show, video version of it on YouTube, where our channel is called, easy enough, 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to some college football talk for today, I figure we're not going to get to it in the 5 o'clock hour like we normally do. And we're not going to be watching too much of it live, you and I, tonight, because we've got high school football we're doing. We do have Thursday night football this evening.
It does exist.
The Bears and Commanders. So the way this game should go, and not all games go as they should, but the way this one probably should unfold is a Washington, 10 to 14 point win. Because they're not great. They looked better last week, even in a loss against Philadelphia. I actually thought Sam Howell played really well last week in that game for Washington. The Bears are dreadful. They played better for 2.5 quarters last week. Justin Fields had the best half of his whole career in the first half last week. Washington is going to be fighting for the 6th or 7th seed, I think. I don't know that they'll get it, but that's kind of what their trajectory is. Their peak, I think, can be this year is get one of the last wild card spots. And if you want to do that, you've got to beat the teams that you should beat. The Bears are probably better off being as miserable as possible. So maybe that is how this game is going to end up, because the Bears are better off if they lose every game and end up getting Caleb Williams this year. So I'm taking Washington to win. I haven't even checked the spread of this game. I'll pull it up right now.
See what our friends in the desert have to say. 6.
Yeah, it's moved to half a point. Commanders by 6. Total is 44.5 currently. That's the consensus line. Yeah, I think I would take Washington with that. I know that's a lot of points for a Thursday night. I know home field advantage on Thursday nights is not as strong as you would often think it is in terms of the gambling markets. I just don't see it for the Bears. Washington actually has something to play for right now. I don't really think the Bears do. Again, they're better off if they keep losing.
Yeah.
So I'm going Commanders tonight.
It's such a grim matchup. It's not even fun to comprehend. We saw this exact matchup on Thursday Night Football last year, and it was appallingly bad, like unwatchably bad.
Do you remember the final score?
Like 13-8. It was something stupid. It was barely a football score.
1 point too high in each regard. It was 12-7. Commanders won 12-7. I remember Darnell Mooney made a really lazy play on the sideline near or in the end zone late that could have put the Bears on top.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't, obviously.
It was the week after the Denver-Indianapolis Thursday night game that was so bad that Bronco fans left instead of watch the overtime that they were about to get in front of them.
Yeah.
And I really, at times during last year's Bears-Commanders game on Thursday Night Football, wondered if Al Michaels was going to retire on the spot.
He is going to be so snarky and sassy tonight. It's unbelievable.
If they get a good game, you will hear like surprise and giddiness in his voice, a lightness maybe not present for many, many years. But if this is a slog, he's ready for it to be a slog.
In consecutive weeks last season, September 29th, October 6th, October 13th, a year ago, Thursday Night Football featured Tua Tagovailoa almost dying on the field with the nastiest concussion we've maybe ever seen. The Colts-Broncos disaster, and then Commanders-Bears almost as big of a disaster. That's what we've been dealing with Thursday Night Football. Great. I can't believe they put this game on Thursday 2 years in a row.
I know, right?
Just make this the Spiro Ditas game on CBS. Hide it in just these two markets and move on.
They should do that anyway.
Well,
if you try and get on Amazon Prime and watch this game, it should ask you, are you sure?
It just skips ahead to whatever the post-game concert is.
Can we recommend, like, I don't know, watch Fleabag instead?
Would you prefer to watch The Boys? You can now stream The Americans on Freevee. Would you like to watch that instead? So that's Thursday Night Football coming up tonight. I would imagine we have some college games tonight, right?
We got two college games tonight.
Just the two Conference USA games?
We got Sam Houston State at Liberty, and we've got Western Kentucky at Louisiana Tech.
All right. All Conference USA, CBS Sportsnet and ESPN respectively at 6 and 7 o'clock. Liberty should take down Sam Houston. Bearcats not quite ready for the transition to FBS.
No, and they played valiantly last week against Jacksonville State, but that was another team also making the transition. Liberty's been D1 FCS for a while now. I was at least a little curious about maybe getting down on this one when it was a 17-point Liberty spread. It's moved to 20.5 through the week, and there's juice on the 20.5. So, I think I'll stay away.
By the way, Jacksonville State, they beat Middle Tennessee. They came back. They were down, 28-14, I think, at one point yesterday.
Yeah, it might have been down more than that. 28-13, I think it was.
Yeah, they were down
not that much more, but yeah, they were down big, and then they cruised.
Yeah, so many points at the very end of that game. They won 45-30. Jacksonville State cannot go bowling this year or play for a Conference USA title because they are in year one of the transition phase. They're 3-0 in their conference and 5-1 overall.
Yeah, they went off as a 3-point dog to a 1-4 Middle Tennessee State team last night. So
their only loss is to I got to pull this up. Hold on, I have the wrong schedule in front of me. Their only loss so far is to Coastal Carolina. They've got wins over Conference USA teams, an FCS win, a MAC win against Eastern Michigan. They shut out Eastern Michigan. They can't go bowl. I hate that, man. I hate that. You want to ban them from playing in conference title games? That's stupid, but whatever. Don't prevent them from going bowling. Come on. That stinks. They're good. Rich Rod is their head coach, if you didn't know. And he can still coach.
Mm-hmm. Still knows offense.
He can still absolutely coach. Biggest game of the weekend is obviously Red River, Oklahoma versus Texas. We were talking to Paul Myerberg about that earlier on today.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear his take because I think you can – I asked him, my question was, which team needs this win more? Which program needs this win more? And I think there's a case to be made in either direction. And Paul said, no, it's obviously Texas. Texas absolutely needs this game more than Oklahoma needs this game. Because if they get it, it's all, with respect to Kansas State, they would be the last team standing between Texas and 12-0. Going to the Big 12 championship game, and then probably a berth in the playoff for the first time. But my argument for Oklahoma needing this one more is that even though they're off to a flying start this year, they have not played anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They were in a tight game for a half with an Iowa State team that I still don't think is particularly good. So we don't have yet proof of concept of what Brett Venables is trying to build as the head coach at Oklahoma. And if he goes to 0-2 in Red River, let's just say historically, you don't want to be 0-2 in Red River.
Yeah.
Particularly considering last year, they got embarrassed in this game. You remember how ugly it got last year?
49-0.
It was embarrassing for Oklahoma. That is as low as that program has been laid in a regular season game in a long, long time. And if Oklahoma comes out and gets mud-holed again, it's going to be some uncomfortable conversations that start to be had about Oklahoma's head coach just a season and a half in. Because, yes, it's great that they're 5-0. The offense has been clicking. I think it is an improved defense legitimately, even though they gave up a couple of long passes early on to Iowa State. They throttled them the rest of that game. Iowa State couldn't do anything after the second quarter, essentially. So I do think the defense has improved. And I do not think that Oklahoma is going to get ragdolled like they did at Red River last year.
I don't think they will either. I still think Texas ends up winning this game. That Oklahoma defense, I think, is for real. You know my feelings about Dylan Gabriel and that offense. I just don't think they have enough dudes offensively. I don't think they're well coached offensively. Jeff Lebby is stuck 7 years ago in, frankly, a lot of ways. I just don't trust that offense. I like their defense a lot. Jaron Kanak, by the way, Hayes product. Ooh, he can play.
Yes.
That dude can really play. Sounded like Jake there for a second. He can really go, though. And he's a lot of fun to watch at that. I don't know if they call it bandit or whatever position they call pretty much every defense in college football has a position like that. Now, K uses the hawk position. It's kind of that nickel linebacker, nickel safety hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid position.
Yeah, he's awesome in that spot, though. Other big games this weekend from around college football. A couple I've got my eye on. Big Noon Saturday is at the Shoe. It's at the Horseshoe in Columbus. It's Ohio State, Maryland. Maryland, by the way, at the moment, I would argue is the most disrespected team in the country. They're 5-0. I know their wins are not good wins. Like Virginia sucks. Michigan State sucks. Indiana sucks. They're still a 5-0 Big Ten team.
Yeah.
No respect in the polls. I like Talia Tagovailoa. I would not be surprised if Ohio State did eventually run away with this game. I think Maryland's got a chance to at least make this a competitive contest, though. I really like their offense.
Yeah, they're very good offensively. I don't think we know how good defensively they are yet. The other thing, too, with Maryland is we've seen them come out of the gates really strong last couple of years. Like September, Maryland is a thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's October now. And so I do have some questions about how sustainable this all is. And if this ends up being, the game where they get exposed, where Ohio State goes and puts up 48 points and Maryland just can't keep up and they end up getting blown out like 48-17 or something like that. The spread's 20.5 for a reason. Ohio State's fascinating to me because they seem like they are trying to prove a point week in, week out that, hey, we're not just a soft air raid, put it up for our wide receivers type of football team. We can play man ball. We can run between the tackles. We can convert 3rd and 1s. We can get stops on defense. Like they really, Ryan Day was really, really bothered by what Lou Holtz said.
Really bothered.
And they seem bent on proving that they can be tough and physical in addition to being the finesse passing game that we've seen over the years. And so far that has worked. I don't think Ohio State's going to have any problem in this game. But I think Maryland can keep it interesting.
I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. Do you remember last year's game between these two? It was 33-30 Ohio State with 10 minutes left. Maryland cut it to a 3-point game. And with 40 seconds left, they had the ball only down 6.
Yeah.
Then they fumbled and Ohio State returned it for a touchdown.
I do remember that.
But Maryland was in that game with a better Ohio State team. So I'm very intrigued by that one. One of the rare ranked versus ranked matchups we've got this weekend. Two teams with polar opposite vibes right now. And I hate to say it about Missouri. If you're Mizzou, you got to feel like you're on top of the world right now, though.
Yeah.
No one thought you'd be 5-0. Nobody. Mizzou fans didn't even think they'd be 5-0 this year.
And LSU obviously just gave up 56 or 55 last week to Ole Miss. And then this week, bigger than football, one of their standouts, Greg Brooks at safety, has revealed that he has a brain tumor.
Yeah, brain cancer.
Rare form of brain cancer. So just a terrible, terrible story there. So that's a LSU team with preseason top 5, all kinds of hype. They've already lost 2 games and they're reeling. They cannot lose this game. I think they might lose this game. I think
it's in Columbia.
If you're a struggling defense, I think one of the last people you want to see lining up across from your struggling defense is Luther Burden, because he is exactly who the most obnoxious Mizzou fan would have told you he was going to be. He's that good. He really is.
He really
Sometimes you just got to tip your cap. You know, Tiger Fan 86 on all the message boards, the obnoxious guy who makes the same jokes about Quantrill all the time. Now, he was right about Luther Burden. I hate to say it. He was.
Yeah, he's a dude.
He's really, really good. And Brady Cook has played excellent football this year. I still don't know if Mizzou can slow down Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. But, gosh, Mizzou being 6.5-point dogs at home, I think that's too steep. I'll pay to see LSU slow down Luther Burden.
Okay. I like that. Any other games, any other storylines that really pop out to you? How are you feeling about Coach Prime in Tempe this weekend?
So that is legitimately interesting, and not just because I think Colorado is, as I've said, it's a good show.
Sure.
It's a good football show.
Yeah.
They have played 5 entertaining football games out of the gate. However you feel, whatever type of way you feel about Colorado and about Coach Prime, they have played 5 entertaining, fun football games. And I would bet on them playing a 6th, because quiet has been kept because Arizona State's not very good, but they figured something out with their offense. They put up over about 350 passing yards against Cal last week. And Cal's not great, but they're generally a little more stout on defense than that. So Arizona State appears to have found their quarterback. This will be the first game for Colorado that isn't a circus. Like, it'll be an event because the celebrity head coach, like, everywhere he goes, it's an event.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a big deal. But the first 5 games for Colorado have all been some form or fashion of a circus. You've had the big pregame shows have been there. You've had the celebrities showing up to Boulder. You've had, the big marquee TV time slots, big noon Saturday 3 times, the primetime game, the Rocky Mountain Showdown against Colorado State.
Mm-hmm.
All of these games have been headline news. And it's a lot to get up for those games. Is Colorado going to be able to get up for this game? They still don't have Travis Hunter. I don't know if they're going to have Shiloh Sanders, who's really important to their defense. Arizona State's going to be up for this.
Yep.
Can Colorado get up for this game? That is something that I think will be interesting to see. I'm thinking they can.
Probably.
I'm thinking they'll find the motivation, but I would not be surprised to see a sleepy start for Colorado in this game.
Most people usually have a pretty easy time getting it up when they get to Tempe, Arizona. But no, that's going to be interesting. Too bad we can't watch it because it's on Pac-12 Network.
I have Pac-12 Network. You want to come over?
I might. Yeah, depending on when the KU game gets over, I might come over.
Okay, yeah, I've got Pac-12
You have
Network.
Pac-12 Network?
Yeah, it's one of the sports channels on Cox, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So yeah, I get them all. There's not a game I can't watch.
I know every team in that conference, I think, has to have 3 games on Pac-12 Network. I can't believe Arizona State ever plays a game not on Pac-12 Network, to be honest with you, this year.
Can I give you one game that is very interesting to me?
Hell yeah.
Went on the radio on Monday, and I said that my big takeaway from last weekend in college football was that I don't think Georgia's the best team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia is a 14.5-point favorite against 20th ranked Kentucky. I watched Kentucky last week do whatever they wanted to do to Florida. Now, that may be more about Florida than it is about Kentucky. That Florida program's not in a very good spot. Year 2 under Billy Napier is not the step forward that maybe it needs to be. But the Kentucky team I saw shouldn't be a 14.5-point dog to anybody. And the Georgia team that has come out the first 5 weeks, I don't think should be favored by 14.5 points over even a ranked opponent. Any kind of ranked opponent. So I'm not putting Georgia on upset watch because they are at home and the Kings are the Kings until they're not. But 14.5 points, that line is making my mind boggle. I think Kentucky's good, and I think they'll cover that.
Mark Stoops is such an awesome coach.
We got to see Georgia play 60 minutes. We haven't seen it yet. Maybe playing a ranked team is the motivation they need at home to get out and play 60 minutes.
They struggled with a bum Auburn team.
But they were at Auburn, in fairness.
Sure.
So being at home, maybe that changes the equation. And certainly, judging by what Vegas thinks of this game, that's what they think is going to happen. But I don't know. I love Ray Davis, the big back at Kentucky. Nobody for Florida could tackle him last week.
No, nobody.
It was hysterical watching them try. I think Kentucky's got a good quarterback. Mark Stoops, that program knows exactly who they are. I think that's going to be a much closer game than Vegas thinks.
I'll give you two real quick ones because we have to get to a break. Also, by the way, this was just announced during this segment. Guest picker for game day this week, Baker Mayfield.
Oh.
Baker's going to have to fly in to Dallas and immediately leave so we can go practice before they take on the Lions this week. I'll give you two real quick ones. G5 game, Mountain West, awesome conference this year. The Mountain West rules this season. Prime time, 7 o'clock on Big Fox, Fresno State, 24th in the country at Wyoming. That game is going to kick ass. Very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, it is.
Also, Notre Dame at Louisville, 10 at 25. Jack Plummer, Louisville's starting quarterback, 65% of his passes completed, 11 touchdowns on the year. He's throwing for 280 plus yards a game. They can sling it at Louisville. I'm really excited for that one. Notre Dame, I think, should be on upset watch when they go to Papa John's. Is it still Papa John Stadium?
No, they have actually renamed it.
Okay, Cardinal Stadium.
I think it's L&R Stadium, something like that. Some other corporate name.
Took Papa's name off of it.
They took Big Papa's name off the stadium.
Really tragic. We've got to get to a break. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. Time to find today's winner in What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. Our winner for the week, it was Grandpa's Got a Gun from yesterday. A 62-year-old man from Texas, but in Nebraska, who was officiating his daughter's wedding.
He was officiating a wedding. I don't know. Yeah, it had to have been somebody he knew.
Someone in the family, I would imagine. Well, he had a snub-nosed pistol with homemade blanks, which aren't like real blanks. They were made of black powder and glue.
Yes.
Yeah, they're little glue bullets. And he wanted to get everyone's attention, so he was going to fire one off into the air. Except he fumbled around with the gun when trying to do it and shot his 12-year-old grandson.
In the arm.
His shoulder. Enough so that he had to, get immediate medical treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not life-threatening injuries, thank goodness, but severe enough that the man is being charged with felony child abuse.
Yeah, not great. Not great. Dan, why don't you go first with our stories today?
We're going to Nashville, where a man was arrested for destroying a gate at a private hangar near the Nashville International Airport after driving into it several times.
Oh.
So this is not our first airport destruction story in recent memory. We had the guy who took an axe to the gate arm at Denver International Airport. This guy just crashed his car into a gate at a private hangar near the Nashville International Airport. It was on Wednesday. Officers arrived to find a black Nissan Altima that had driven into the vehicle gate that leads to the airfield. At the time, there were no occupants in the car, but there were several open cans of Four Loko.
Yo. Wow.
Officers shut down the airfield to find the person responsible for the wreck and wanted to make sure there wasn't a breach of the airfield. Police said they found Felipe Perez inside one of the private hangars. Perez was detained, and officers said they noticed he was under the influence. He had red, bloodshot eyes that were glossed over, slurred speech, and an alcoholic beverage. Officers said they were able to get video footage of the incident and saw that Perez pulled up to the gate around 1:43 a.m. and was messing with the keypad. Shortly after, Perez drove his car into the gate 4 times, then left his car and ran toward the airfield. That is such typical drunk behavior. You're trying to get something to function. It won't function, so then you destroy it with whatever you can. Sometimes with your bare hands, other times apparently with your Nissan Altima. Perez told police he drank four Locos and was driving his nephew to get some of his belongings where he was working before driving into the gate. Perez said after the crash, he got scared and ran away. Estimated damages to the gate, about $30,000. Perez has been booked on driving under the influence, airport and aircraft security, open container, underage consumption, vandalism, evading on foot, driving on a suspended license, and leaving the scene of an accident. That is 8 charges that Perez is facing, which is twice as many Four Locos as he drank.
Oh, my God.
For those who are unfamiliar, Four Loko is like if Red Bull also was malt liquor. They pack a punch.
Yeah.
Now, they do not pack the punch that they used to pack. Veteran Four Loko drinkers will tell you that. But still, if you were able to locate...
If they survived to tell the tale.
Track down a bottle or a can, a pounder of Four Loko, because that's how they come. If you were able to track down a pounder of Four Loko these days, they are run well over 10% alcohol by volume, generally like the 12 to 14% alcohol by volume range, which is to say, if you drink 4 of them, you're lucky to be awake.
Yeah. People forget Four Loko was banned all over the country when it first came out.
Yes.
They had warnings from the FDA not to drink it.
My Four Loko story is that I was curious and I bought one at a convenience store in Oklahoma City while I was on a road trip covering Washburn basketball.
Oh.
I drank it alone in my hotel room and went right to bed. It tasted like Dimetap. like child's cough medicine. It was truly revolting. One of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life. I'll never touch stuff again.
So
I drank one and 14% alcohol by volume for like a pounder. Like you feel that.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how experienced a drinker you may be, you're going to feel 1, never mind 4.
So gross. So messed up. Everything about Four Loko is...
And that was the last time I ever drank Four Loko.
My story is going to take us to, I believe we are going to North Dakota, Bismarck specifically, where after asking a McDonald's patron to buy him a Happy Meal and some other food, a North Dakota man pulled out a gun when his request was rejected with the line, "Go get a job." On Saturday, while responding to what was described as a terrorizing report, police busted George Demarius, a 33-year-old. Officers located a 9mm handgun, which Demarius had concealed in the stroller that his 1-year-old daughter was seated in. According to an affidavit, Trent Guthmiller, a 43-year-old, was on a break from work and was walking into McDonald's to get lunch when Demarius, quote, asked him to buy him a Big Mac and a Happy Meal. Guthmiller responded by telling Demarius, go get a job. Guthmiller proceeded to walk inside the restaurant where he stood in line surrounded by innocent bystanders, including children. Demarius was not happy with this and allegedly followed Guthmiller into the McDonald's and pulled out a gun. He then pointed the weapon at Guthmiller and said the victim had been disrespectful. Demarius proceeds to call Guthmiller a son of a bleep and told him to bleep off before stowing the firearm back in his waistband and leaving the restaurant. A police review of security footage corroborated the account of the confrontation, which cops say left him, quote, in fear for his safety as well as the safety of surrounding bystanders. Demarius was arrested on a felony charge of terrorizing with a dangerous weapon. He was locked up in lieu of a $10,000 cash bond and has been ordered to have no contact with Guthmiller. Duh. Like, they didn't seem to know each other in the first place.
Right?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Demarius's female companion, this is an incredible name, Eloise Flying By, a 27-year-old woman, was also arrested, charged with giving a false name to police officers. She spent 10 days in jail.
Jeez.
Yeah, real winners here.
Yeah, just like somebody asked you to buy him something, there are two options. One is you do it for him because you're, I don't know, act of Christian charity, goodness of your heart, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you're feeling in the giving mood that day. Somebody asks you to buy him food, you buy him food. More often, you will probably choose not to buy that person food, but just don't say anything to them.
Just walk by.
Yeah. Don't need to tell them, how about you get a job, bummy? Like, nah, man. Like,
what a jerk thing to say.
It really is.
You don't know what that dude's going through, man.
No, you really don't. Like, that's just it. Like, you have no idea what has brought that person to the state that they're in, that they are asking a total stranger to buy a meal for them and their 1-year-old. Like, obviously, something did not go according to plan for George here. Just leave him alone. Just ignore him. Walk on in, get your chicken McNuggets, and enjoy the rest of your day. And don't pile on that beating man.
No.
Also, don't point a gun.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, I'm not excusing George's behavior here
Who
either.
you got?
I'm gonna go with 4 Loco guy.
Yeah, you can't do that, man. You can't have 4 Locos and then destroy an airport hangar. Can't do that.
No.
Does that beat Grandpa's Got a Gun?
No, absolutely not. That's going to be our weekly winner since we won't have this tomorrow. So
that's true. We're off early tomorrow. So yeah, Grandpa's Got a Gun up in Lincoln. Glue bullets. Homemade glue bullets shot his grandson in the shoulder, and now he's facing felony charges.
You got to make sure the hands are nice if you're trying to operate a snub nose, man.
Apparently so. That is our winner in What Is Wrong With You, which as always is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Coming up on the other side of this break, we'll hear from KU's Luke Grimm. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Back here on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski rocking solo with you for the rest of the show today. We've got some high school football coming up a little bit later on tonight, 7 o'clock kick from Hummer Sports Park. But also coming up this weekend, another afternoon kickoff for the Kansas Jayhawks as they will be in action against the UCF Knights. To talk about that game and all things Jayhawks football, we welcome in KU's top receiver, Luke Grimm, the Kansas City area product. Luke, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. I know that this past weekend didn't go the way you guys had hoped down in Austin, but through 5 weeks and a 4-1 start to the season, how are you feeling and how is this whole roster feeling about another hot start for the team this year?
Yeah, we feel great about it. You know, we're doing everything that we want to be doing in the games. We're, you know, competing at a high level on both sides of the ball and then, you know, excelling on special teams. So we're right where we want to be, and we're just keep pushing forward to, you know, the goal of getting to the Big 12 championship.
Speaking of putting together that intense effort on in every phase, offense, defense, special teams as well, and I guess this specifically pertains to you guys on the offense, what was the goal for you, for this group this year in order to take this to the next level? Because last year you guys get off to that hot start, go bowling. We remember that crazy game at the Liberty Bowl, and there was all sorts of hype that, yeah, what a nice story for Kansas. But what was sort of the intention and what was the plan this year to take you guys from a high-powered offense and a good story to being legitimate staying power and not just being a good offense, but one of the best in the Big 12?
Yeah, we knew that we had 10 guys coming back on offense and that there was one of two ways that it could go. We could either be complacent and we could do just as good or worse than we did last year, or we could push ourselves to become the best offense we can. And that's what we've done, and that's what the coaches have done since, you know, the Arkansas game last year. Every single practice from spring ball to fall camp to now, we're pushing ourselves to become better every day. And whether that's, you know, on the O-line, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, QB, every single one of us has things that we can work on and better ourselves. And so we're really focused on those every day.
This game this past weekend against Texas, and that's a darn good Texas team. They're ranked in the top 3 in the country for a reason. And obviously you don't want to suffer that first loss of the season, going on the road, hostile environment, all sorts of tough elements that went into that game. What can you guys learn from a game like that going forward? Because there's no rest for the wicked here. You guys have a tough team in UCF coming up this weekend. What do you think in the short term you can pick up from that game at Texas and then turn it into something positive going forward?
Yeah. To learn from it for us, the biggest thing was that we just had too many self-inflicting wounds. You know, we had a couple penalties and a couple drops early in the game that kind of put us at a bad start where, you know, we could go down, march down first drive. We have a couple drops that makes us punt. If, you know, we come out, started off 7-0, it's a completely different game. And we had a couple big runs of, you know, 15, 20 yards that get canceled by penalties and kind of slow down the drive. So our biggest thing is that, you know, we can make the plays and we know we can. We just have to continue to execute at a high level and limit those penalties and drops and miscues.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is KU starting wide receiver Luke Grimm as the Kansas Jayhawks get ready to take on the UCF Knights coming up on Saturday afternoon at home at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. Luke, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what your career has been like at KU, because you came in 2019, I believe, was your recruiting class, and a few of you guys are still around from that class. We'll get to your starting quarterback in a second here, but you've seen a lot in your time at KU. There was obviously the tough year in 2020, 2021, first year with this current coaching staff, to then blowing up last year and then another great start this year. What has this been like for someone who is local from the Kansas City area to see where this program was, where it was when you started to where it is now? What's that been like for you to get to witness firsthand?
Yeah, you know, it's awesome for me and then for the, you know, Lawrence community, KU fans to be able to witness this turnaround, this change, and, you know, us bringing wins to Lawrence and wins to Kansas. It's great. You know, we put a lot of work in, you know, since I got here in 2020 with COVID, kind of put everything in a halt and makes everything odd. You know, you never expected anything like that. None of us have been through it before. So, you know, the first year here, it didn't really feel like college football because, you know, there's no fans. It's kind of, you know, you're kind of hard to practice. It's hard to, you know, get in meeting rooms because you have to social distance from each other. So first year was like just very weird. And then, you know, Coach Leipold's staff comes in and, you know, they bring in, they're great coaches, great coaching staff, great strength staff. And we're rolling from the start. we're making a lot of changes. We're doing a bunch of development, and we're getting bigger, stronger, faster in every position. And then, that shows up first year that they're here. And then we get a full off season together for the first time. And, everyone's busting their balls as hard as they can. They're going, 1,000 miles an hour during every drill, every meeting, everyone's locked in. And it shows during that first year, but we kind of lost it on the tail end of the season. And that's what we've been working on this year is, maintaining that drive and not never getting too high, never getting too low, keeping strong throughout the entire season, because the season's not 5 games long, it's 12.
I wanted to ask about your quarterback, Jalen Daniels. And I know Jalen's been banged up a little bit as of late, but you guys have been together at KU pretty much since the beginning of your respective careers. And as a lot of the attention has, funneled down to him and Big 12 Offensive Preseason Player of the Year and all that, and had some Heisman hype last year as well. He's grown as a player, and you've grown right alongside him into being one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12. What is your relationship with your starting quarterback like, and what has it been like for you to grow alongside each other as this program does the same?
Yeah, we got here in late May, early June, and we get to be with the team for about 2 weeks before the first wipe of COVID comes, and we, nobody's allowed in the facility for 17 days. And so, like a lot of us, we lived at the Stouffer Apartments, and there was a football field, a little 60, 70-yard field right next to the apartments where they do, rec activities and groups outside of the University of Kansas. And we'd go there every night at 8, 9 p.m. when the sun goes down, turn the lights on, and we'd just, there'd be about 20, 30 guys out there catching routes, playing one-on-one, 7-on-7. And, just being able to live in the same dorm with all those guys that were freshmen coming in. We went and ate together every day. You're right down the hall. So go play video games, go hang out, chill. We got, watching football on Sundays, hang out with each other. And then, like you said, just growing JD for the whole first season, he's 17 years old as a starting quarterback, and I'm 18. And then now he's about to be 21. I'm 22. And, we were just talking about it the other day where it's you don't feel like you are that old. I don't feel like I'm 22. I still feel like I'm the freshman that just came in, and I'm 18 years old. And it's just weird to think that we've been here together for 4 years, and the amount we've grown and gotten bigger, faster, stronger, smarter with the game. But yeah, as far as he's grown, he's just matured so much as his game, his concept of defenses, and understanding his confidence and how that makes him the player that he is.
We're chatting with Luke Grimm, starting wide receiver for the Kansas Jayhawks here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. KU will take on UCF coming up with another afternoon kickoff on Saturday back home in Lawrence at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. And like I mentioned, Jalen has been banged up a little bit recently, but for you guys to have someone like Jason Bean who can come off the bench in a pinch, quite literally in a pinch this past week, and I know he mentioned he found out just before kickoff, like the rest of you guys, that he would be starting. If Jalen can't go, how much faith do you guys have? Or maybe the better way to phrase it is, how nice is it for you as an offense to know you've got a backup quarterback you could have faith in, who is going to make plays no matter how much prep he has?
Yeah. Jason's awesome. Love him to death. He's a great guy, great quarterback, great team leader. There's no question whether he can ball or not for us. Everybody's during his time here, since the day he got here, he's been, the fastest guy on this team. And that's one of his best assets is how fast he is. But he's a great passer. He makes amazing runs, amazing reads, and he's just the same as Jalen. They're just playmakers in the game. They can dodge sacks, avoid tackles, make great reads, throw perfect balls. So there's no fault, no kind of downside to either one of them playing. We've got full faith in both of them.
One more on the field question I've got for you, Luke, and that is this game coming up on Saturday. I've mentioned it a few times, taking on UCF. And when people talk about this 2023 UCF Knights team, they talk about speed. They've got team speed all over their offense, their special teams, and their defense that you'll be lining up against as well. What do you know, and what really stands out to you about this UCF team when you watch them on film?
Yeah, like you said, they're extremely fast. They play very physical. They play to the whistle ends. They have great effort on both sides of the ball. Their special teams is good. They're not gonna halt or stop because they're down 7, 10, 14 points. They're going to scratch and fight till the end, and we're going to do the same thing. It's going to be a great game. Everyone's excited to play. Nobody here has played anybody in UCF before, so it's going to be an awesome game. Excited for them to come, but we look forward to playing an extremely fast and extremely physical, good football team.
All right, last two I've got for you, Luke, real quickly here. And again, we appreciate you taking the time for us today. Number one, and your starting running back for you guys, Devin Neal, he told us a while back, Oklahoma was his choice. What is your favorite Big 12 road trip to make year in, year out?
I'm surprised you said Oklahoma because we have to drive there. Probably K-State. One, because it's like, we're going into a hostile environment. It's going to be a fun game. I know that, the fans are going to be screaming at us, where it's like kind of the best things about college football where, you don't want to go to opposing stadium and fans are nice to you as a football player. You want to hear people scream. Like when you're on the bench, they're right behind you and you can hear them. And then it's also a short trip where the other ones are, we're traveling 6 hours at the most during the day where, we leave at 11, we get there at like 4. That one's like, we leave at 11, we get there at 1:30. So that one, because of the fans, the environment, how the game's played there, and then, how short it is.
Real quick, when it comes to K-State, because I know you grew up just on the other side of the state line in Missouri, but were you super aware of the intensity and sort of the vitriol between the fan bases, especially, but between those two teams, KU and K-State, when you came to KU and first got your first indoctrination into that rivalry?
Yeah, and I knew well before, too, because my mom is a huge KU fan. She loves KU basketball, KU football, and my grandpa, her dad, graduated from K-State and is a huge K-State fan. But since I've been at KU, he's not as much of a K-State fan anymore. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, we went there freshman year, so you didn't really get to experience the whole fan aspect and kind of the atmosphere of the game. But, there's still 11 other players on the field that hate you just as much as you hate them just because you're wearing different colors. So I could feel it then. And then when they came here sophomore year, you could just feel it. The stadium's packed. There's purple in the stands, but it's filled with red and white. And then we go back there last year and it's one of those rainy games and it's just a dogfight. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to play them this year, and I'm definitely excited to feel that atmosphere again.
Yeah, I know we're hyped up for that game too, coming up in a few weeks. And respect to your grandpa as well for sticking with the family. I appreciate that. That's a good virtue for him to have. All right, Luke, final thing I've got for you. When you are just about to run out of the tunnel, or you're heading off the field after warm-ups before a game, number one song at the top of the playlist, song you have to hear before you take the field. What is it?
My last 3 songs that I listen to have to be by Lil Baby because I've done it since I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
And I don't care what they are, but the last 12 minutes of my getting prepped for a game are 3 Lil Baby songs.
I love it. Love to hear it. Well, Luke Grimm is the starting wide receiver, the number 1 wide receiver for these Kansas Jayhawks. They will take on UCF coming up afternoon in Lawrence. Luke, we appreciate you taking the time for us, man. I know game week is busy, but thank you so much for the time. Best of luck the rest of the season, and best of luck this weekend against UCF.
Thank you.
That is Luke Grimm, starting wide receiver for the Kansas Jayhawks. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk today. Come on back. We'll start things off with our headlines here on 580 WIBW. on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. As I mentioned during our interview with Luke Grimm at the end of last hour, flying solo with you for the rest of the show today. Dan Lucero is on his way to Hummer Sports Park for some high school football tonight, presented by Lewis Toyota. We've got Highland Park versus Atchison, one of the biggest games of the year, maybe the biggest game of the year in the Meadowlark Conference. Pregame is set for 6:45, kickoff at 7 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW. It's the first of two games sponsored by Lewis Toyota that we'll have on our Alpha Media Topeka family of stations coming up this week. Tomorrow night, our Lewis Toyota high school football game of the week will feature non-league competition as Wamego visits Shawnee Heights in Tecumseh. That'll be over on Country 106.9, 6:45 pregame and 7 o'clock kickoff. Here in this final hour of the show, we will hear from Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs. He's going to join us coming up in just a little bit for our weekly conversation brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. We will also have this week's Lewis Toyota Athlete of the Week. Just one athlete this week, J.C. Zimmerman, a junior golfer from Seaman, winner of the United Kansas Conference individual tournament this past week, part of a team championship for Seaman. And we'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a matter of moments. If you would like to be a part of the show today, there are a couple very easy ways to do so. Hit us up either on the text line, 785-272-9429, or you can hop into the comment section on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on our YouTube channel, or that is the name of our YouTube channel. That's where you can find us on YouTube. Since we have so much to get to here and only so much time left in the 5 o'clock hour, let's dive right in. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. We will lead things off with our Chiefs injury report. Just a couple of days away from kickoff in Minnesota. Really good news all across the board for the Chiefs this week. A bunch of names listed on the injury report, 10 in total, but only 3 players anything but full participants today. Second day in a row, Matt Dickerson, the reserve defensive tackle, has been out with a knee injury. Nick Bolton with his ankle as he recovers from that, limited participation for the second day in a row. We heard earlier today from Steve Spagnuolo how big of a deal it would be to get Nick Bolton back this week against that Minnesota Vikings offense. He was limited for the second day in a row. And then Wanye Morris, who was not listed at all yesterday, he was a limited participant today due to an issue with his hip. We should also note that Jalen Watson with his shoulder, limited yesterday, full participant today. That is a great sign that the Chiefs will be at full strength for this game coming up on Sunday. As for Minnesota, they had 3 players who did not practice yesterday for rest. That includes linebacker Jordan Hicks, tackle Brian O'Neill, safety Harrison Smith. They all got rest days yesterday. They did not participate yesterday, but were back and full goes today. Linebacker Brian Asamoah, limited participant each of the last 2 days. He's dealing with a toe. Same can be said for safety Lewis Seen, outside linebacker / edge rusher Marcus Davenport with an ankle, safety Josh Metellus with a shoulder, and backup quarterback Nick Mullins with a back injury. All 5 of those players for the Vikings, limited participants in practice. They did get a little bit of good news as their starting center, Garrett Bradbury, who was limited yesterday due to a back injury. He was back and a full participant for the Vikings today. 3:25 kickoff coming up on Sunday between the Chiefs and the Vikings. 2 o'clock pregame start time, which you can hear right here on your home for Chiefs football in Northeast Kansas, 580 WABW and FM 104.9. Let's get to the playoff roundup. Usually the sound effects, the manual sound effects sound better when Dan introduces it, and then I can make the sound effects, but whoosh, there we go. 580 Sports Talk playoff roundup, Major League Baseball edition. All 4 wild card round series ended in a 2-0 sweep. And I know it is easy to say this was a mistake. They shouldn't have gone to this format. You should have punted the 6th team, stuck with just 5, done the wild card game, etc. And while I agree with that, I would also like to add it's stupid to have 6 teams in the playoffs in each league. You played 162 games. We know who the best teams are. And I know it was gimmicky to just have the 1-game playoff. I understand that's not really baseball when you play long series and it's a marathon, not a sprint, to suddenly have a sprint for 1 game. I get it. But guys, too many teams in the postseason. And I think that was proven. A couple of these were upsets. we did not need to have 6 teams in each league make it to the postseason. But we knew yesterday before we went off the air that the Rays were eliminated, gone, tossed, done for. The Rangers upset the 99-win Rays. Texas moving on to the ALDS. They are taking on the top-seeded Baltimore Orioles, the number 1 team in the American League this year. So our ALDS series, with the Twins also winning for the first time in, I don't even remember how many years it's been since they last won a playoff series. I think it was 1998. They hadn't won a playoff game since I think it was 20 seasons ago. They end up sweeping the Toronto Blue Jays 2-0. So the Twins will now take on the Houston Astros in the ALDS. Those games will all begin on Saturday. Meanwhile, in the National League, the garbage offense for the Milwaukee Brewers finally caught up with them. How about this? In their last 9 playoff games, the Milwaukee Brewers, 1-8 with 17 runs scored. 17, 1.8 runs a game in their last 9 playoff games. Amazingly, even with great pitching, and we know how important pitching is in the playoffs, if you can't hit, you can't win. And the Brewers ended up getting swept in 2 games by the 84-win Diamondbacks. They will get to play the Los Angeles Dodgers. Meanwhile, so that's a rematch from the NL West. We've also got a rematch from the NL East, as the Atlanta Braves will take on the Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies had very little trouble with the Miami Marlins. We now can no longer say any of the fun stuff about how the Marlins only win the World Series when they make the playoffs. They've since made it twice since their last World Series. They won it all in 97, made the playoffs, not even as a division winner. The only other time they ever made the playoffs was in 2003, non-division winner. They won the World Series. They made the playoffs in the COVID year, 2020, but we could all say, yeah, that really didn't count, fake season, all that. Well, this was a fully real season, and the Marlins did not win the World Series. So that fun little factoid is now out the window. Phillies take care of business without much resistance. They will take on the Atlanta Braves. I know Dan made a comment, I think it was on Twitter yesterday, about the NL West rematch being the Dodgers against the somewhat, relatively speaking, lowly Diamondbacks. Meanwhile, the Braves to take on the Phillies, a much more difficult matchup, but that's the way it's set up. That's the name of the game. Sometimes it shakes out like that. Should be a couple of fun series. I think all of these shape up to be pretty fun. I would rank them, if I had to rank them fun, most fun to least fun of these 4 divisional series, give me Braves, Phillies 1, Orioles, Rangers 2, Dodgers, Diamondbacks 3, and then Astros, Twins 4. So that's most fun to least fun if I had to rank them. They will all begin on Saturday. It'll be Baltimore and Texas game 1 at noon on Saturday, followed by Houston hosting Minnesota at 3:45. Then in primetime, Atlanta hosting Philadelphia at 5, and the Dodgers will host the Diamondbacks at 8:20 coming up on Saturday. FS1 will have the American League games. TBS will have the National League games. So there is your MLB playoff roundup for this Thursday afternoon. Continuing on with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today, this October 5th. Next up, let's get to some news from the college sports world. Multiple reports coming in from around college football today, including from Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, trending toward Jason Bean getting the start again for the Kansas Jayhawks this weekend. Sounds like he is going to get the call. Jalen Daniels, week to week, is the most recent report with his back issue, so he is likely not going to be able to go against UCF. Frankly, not all that surprised. We tell you all the time to go be a VIP over at 24/7 Sports. You can read what guys like Tim Fitzgerald and Michael Swain are reporting on their respective sites. Michael Swain said earlier this week he was expecting Bean would get the call, and that seems to be how things are trending. It'll be Jason Bean throwing to Luke Grimm, handing off to Devin Neal, etc. I do think it is important to note one thing about Bean. He did not play well against Texas. Very few guys on the KU team played well against Texas. It's hard to prepare for maybe the most talented team in the country with 45 minutes start time on knowing that you're going to be the starter. He had no preparation with the ones all week. The expectation for KU the entire time was it was going to be Jalen Daniels at starting quarterback for KU when they took on Texas. Bean knew 45 minutes before kickoff that he was going to get the call. hard to prepare for that team with that little preparation time. This week, Daniels has not practiced yet. It has been all Bean with the ones. I know there is a discrepancy between the two of them at quarterback, and trust me, I am going to be the first one to tell you that on any given day. But that being said, with a full week to prepare, knowing you're going to be the starter, running with the first team offensive line, running with the first team wide receivers, running with the first team playbook. It's the same playbook, but you know what I mean, that you get the experience running those plays, going through walkthrough in that most important role on the roster. I think it's going to pay dividends for Jason Bean. What should be noted is that John Rice Plumlee, the quarterback for UCF, it is trending as though he is going to play for the first time in a few weeks. Timmy McClain, UCF's backup, has started each of the last 3 weeks for UCF. So starting quarterback likely back for UCF, usual starter likely out for KU, and notably and accordingly, the spread in Las Vegas has jumped the fence. KU entered today a 2.5-point favorite. That has swung now favoring UCF entering the weekend. So bet accordingly if that's your thing. Also from the college sports world, not football, but how about college women's basketball? The Big 12 women's basketball preseason media poll is out for the first time since I believe it's 2005. The Texas Longhorns are the favorites in the Big 12. They received 12 of 14 first-place votes. Baylor received 2, so we know that Texas's vote went to Baylor. But Baylor got 2 of those first-place votes. And how about numbers 3 and 4 in order? The Kansas Jayhawks and the Kansas State Wildcats, those two separated by just 5 points. How about that? What a start to this year it should be for both KU and for K-State. Super excited about women's basketball in the state coming up this year. We talked to Brandon Schneider ahead of the season last year for the KU, and we'll see if we can get Coach Schneider and maybe Coach Mitty on this year as well, head coach of the Kansas State women, because this should be a fantastic year of basketball for the women in the state of Kansas and for the men, obviously, as well. This is the best preseason rankings for both KU and K-State in a long time. KU obviously won the women's NIT last year. K-State is getting one of the 10 best players in all of women's college basketball back this year in Ioka Lee. Very excited for women's college basketball in the state this year. So pretty cool. Top 4 for both KU and K-State. We should note, by the way, in this transition year for all the newcomers in the Big 12, your bottom 4 in the preseason women's basketball poll: BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF. The Big 12 in football, different beast for these programs who are assimilating in. Men's basketball, we know it's a different beast for these programs that are assimilating in. Other sports, yeah, more of the same. Big 12, great women's basketball league. Not surprising that all the newcomers are predicted to finish in the bottom of the league this year. Rounding out today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, let's get to a couple from the NFL, some personnel news involving a Topeka native, Tevin Jenkins, the Topeka High product, former Oklahoma State Cowboy. He's been activated to the Chicago Bears 53-man roster. So Tevin is going to be called up for the first time all season, began the year on IR. He's going to likely see action coming up tonight. The Chicago Bears are in action tonight against the Washington Commanders. That'll be cool. That's a big boon for the Bears. Struggled early in his career when they had him at tackle, but kicking him inside to guard really helped kickstart his NFL career. You can make an argument he is the best offensive lineman that the Bears have, at least next to their rookie right tackle, Darnell Wright. Very cool for Tevin Jenkins. He will be healthy and I assume active for Thursday Night Football tonight. Also, big news in the AFC race. Von Miller back in action. He made the trip to London with the Bills. They're taking on the Jaguars this week. And according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, the first 2 practices of the week, no worries for Von Miller. He's got a legitimate chance to play for the Bills coming up this weekend when they take on Jacksonville from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. I'm not going to lie. I may do that again. You got to say it with not a full accent, but you have to pronounce it kind of the same way. Tottenham as opposed to Tottenham. That's, how Americans would say it. Tottenham Hotspur. But that is where this Sunday's early kickoff, Bills-Jags, will be emanating from. Von Miller may be able to go for the Bills. That's a big deal. This Bills team was probably slept on going into the year. And look, it happens in football. You are the flavor of the week. And if you do not give people reason to believe you belong staying in that flavor of the week category, they will move on. They will pick a new one. And there was a lot of talk going into this year that the window was starting to close for the Bills, that they were no longer second banana to the Kansas City Chiefs. No, it's all Bengals now. Bills, you're out. You're passé. Well, don't be too certain about that. Because Josh Allen has been balling out since week one and that surprising loss to the New York Jets. They beat the tar out of the Dolphins this week. After that great start for both sides, the Bills were the dominant team for the better part of 3 quarters on their way to a 28-point victory over Miami up in Orchard Park. So don't sleep on this Bills team. I know their defense took a huge hit with Trey White, done for the year because of that Achilles tear, but getting Von Miller back on their defense, really, really, really big addition for that Buffalo squad. One final headline we'll get to before we get to our first commercial break of this 5 o'clock hour from hockey, but not really just hockey. We've got another team, another professional sports team that airs its game on Bally Sports that is moving on to greener pastures. The Arizona Coyotes leaving the Diamond Sports Group, aka Bally Sports. They have agreed to a deal with Scripps Sports. Scripps, similar to Gray Television or Nexstar, one of those companies, just an owner of local TV networks. It is Channel 15 in Phoenix. They are the new official broadcast partner of the Arizona Coyotes. So similar to the Diamondbacks in baseball, the Padres in baseball, leaving Bally Sports, they have a new contract with a local broadcaster that is going to be available in Phoenix, in Tucson, Flagstaff, all the local municipalities around Arizona in the Coyotes market. They're going to have local TV agreements this year. That is a big deal. Good for Coyotes fans, if there are any. And a big sign as well for the future of sports for other teams that are on Bally. Hint, hint, the Kansas City Royals, maybe in the future. We'll find out probably in the near future, in fact. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Thursday, October 5th. We'll take a break, come back with our Athlete of the Week presented by Lewis Toyota here on 580 Sports Talk. It's time for our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week. Just one athlete joining us this week, but she is a stud golfer for the Seaman Vikings. Her name is JC Zimmerman, winner of the individual title at the United Kansas Conference Golf Meet this past week. We got to talk to JC all about her junior season so far, some of her future plans, and of course, her big win earlier this week, or last week now at this rate. So without further ado, our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week, she is JC Zimmerman, a junior golfer for the Seaman Vikings. Zimmerman from the Seaman Vikings, who picked up an individual title by 2 whole strokes this past week at the United Kansas Conference Golf Tournament at Village Greens. 1 year after finishing second in the event, she picks up a win in her junior season. The first thing I've got to ask, though, JC, before we get to this past weekend, I found out just as we were sitting down to speak today, this is not the only Athlete of the Week honor that you're getting this week. Tell us a little bit about Seaman High School and your Athlete of the Week honor.
It was really fun. Like, I didn't think I was going to get Athlete of the Week this year because it's, like, towards the end of the season. And getting Athlete of the Week it's just fun. I get to, like, stand out compared to everyone else.
No, that is very cool. Congratulations to all the accolades recently. And let's go back to this past week at the UKC Golf Tournament. A 2-stroke win, a 79 at Village Greens to pick up the win. What was working so well for you at the league tournament event this past week, and why do you think you were able to pull ahead of the pack?
My drive, I hit every fairway. And at the beginning, I wasn't sinking my putts, and then I just started sinking my putts. And I got 3 birdies in a row, which helped me a lot.
Your drive in particular, were you able to tell very early on in your round that it was going to be a good day? You know, did you hit that first one and think, oh, yeah, I'm in the zone today? Or did it take a little while for it to sink in that, oh, yeah, I'm really in the zone?
I think after, like, my first couple holes, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good day. They were going, like, far and, like, straight down the middle. Like, they weren't going, like, left or right, which helped me a lot.
We're chatting with JC Zimmerman, a junior golfer for Seaman Girls Golf, our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week after her individual title and team title for Seaman Golf at the UKC tournament this past week. Give us a little bit of a scouting report for you, JC. Is that something, your driver, that has been a strength of yours all season and throughout your career? Is that something you've had to work on a little bit more? I know you mentioned your putting game as well. Give us a little bit of the JC Zimmerman scouting report.
I definitely had to work on my drives because at the beginning of this season, they were not good. They like kept on either going left or right. And I was like, I need to get these like straight to like help me towards the end of the season. So like a couple practices, all I focused on was my drives, which helped me a lot.
Obviously, when you golf, there is so much patience that you need to have in order to improve on those things, notice what might be wrong, you know, a hitch, something in your follow through, whatever it ends up being. Are you naturally patient when it comes to athletics and your sport, or is that something that golf has kind of taught you over time to have that patience to work on whatever you need to work through?
I think golf has helped my patience a lot because I'm patient, but golf is like a really slow game. So I just found out like I have to be patient, and because the rounds are like 4, 5, 6 hours long.
When you were going into this season, JC, what were some of the goals you set out for yourself? I know I mentioned it earlier, just last year as a sophomore, you finished second at this exact same tournament. Was this one of the things you had on your list of goals you wanted to hit this year, was winning this event? And what were some of the other things you were hoping to accomplish here in your junior season?
Yes, one of my goals was to win leagues this year since I took second last year. And since Lois took first, I was like, she's graduating, and like I should be able to take first. And some other goals is just consistently shooting like low to mid 80s, and just hopefully being top 20 in state.
We have just a couple more questions for our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week, J.C. Zimmerman, a junior golfer from Seaman Vikings Girls Golf. And you mentioned Lois Dieter, who is a former Athlete of the Week here on our program from last year. She's now golfing collegiately at Arkansas Tech. And this is a program, J.C., at Seaman that you guys have won and won a lot, as I mentioned, back-to-back league titles as well. What did you think of the overall performance from your entire team this past week?
I thought our performance was on top. Everyone was shooting low 80s. We were doing good. Everyone had a good game.
Last thing I've got for you, JC, and I know you're just a junior, so there's a lot of time left before you have to make any sort of big decisions about this, but following your senior year next year, have you given any thought to what you might want to do come post-secondary education, going to college, doing something else? And whatever you end up doing, do you hope that golf ends up being a part of it?
Yes, I want to do golf in college.
Have you put in any thought of where you might want to go or any kind of program yet, or are those some of the decisions you'll wait a little while to think about?
I have some schools in mind, but Fort Hays is one, and KU. I just want to stay in Kansas.
Well, no matter where J.C. Zimmerman ends up, any college program will be very happy in a couple of years. J.C. Zimmerman, winner of the United Kansas Conference Girls Golf Tournament this past week at Village Greens, and she is our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week. J.C., thank you so much for taking the time for us. We really appreciate it, and best of luck coming up in the rest of this high school golf season.
Thank you.
That is J.C. Zimmerman from Seaman, our Lewis Toyota High School Athlete of the Week. By the way, some real quick breaking news from the high school sports world. Maybe not shocking news, but with Care Paravel moving from 8-man to 11-man football next year. We found that out last week, or earlier this week it might have been. Time goes by so quickly. We all know that. Care Paravel also switching leagues starting next year. The Lions will be joining the Flint Hills League for all sports, including football, starting next year. So that program has exploded. They had a big win last Friday, a big game coming up, as we talked about with Rick Peterson earlier on in the show. But from high school sports and high school football, we're moving on to the NFL and Kansas City Chiefs football. We'll talk to the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, coming up on the other side of this break, right here on 580 Sports Talk. 537 here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski with you, flying solo today. Dan getting all set up at Hummer Sports Park for some Thursday night high school football. Highland Park will take on Atchison in a major Meadowlark Conference matchup coming up. Pregame begins at 6:45. Kickoff at 7 right here on 580 WIBW. But with that, it's time for our favorite segment of the week, when we welcome in the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, to 580 Sports Talk, brought to you as always by our good friends at both Azura Credit Union and Hy-Vee. Mitch, how are you doing on this first Thursday of October?
Good. That move by Highland Park to the Meadowlark has been a good for them, has it not?
Absolutely. Yeah, 6 wins a year ago, a crazy playoff game, and now another great start to this season. It's been phenomenal for that program.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting is Cara Paravel, a lot of friends involved with that since the 21 years we lived in Silver Lake, but we attended Topeka Bible Church. A lot of those folks are Cara Paravel families. For them to go 1A and join 45 other teams in 1A starting next year. Of course, my alma mater, Smith Center, always looking to see who's in and who's out of 1A 11-man, and interesting to see CPLS join the ranks.
Yeah, how about 8-man non-Keisha, and then within 3 years to be Keisha 1A 11-man? Talk about a glow-up for that program, huh, Mitch?
And it'll be interesting to see who'll be in their district. You can smell Centralia, for sure, probably being in their district. Jeff County North, who's a power this year. Jackson Heights is always good. In 1A, I'll leave somebody out, Troy. But I got a feeling, that's going to be the place where they live, at least in their district. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them the next couple of years.
I can tell you, in fact, Mitch, that came out earlier this week. It'll be Care Paravel, Wabunzie, Mission Valley, Olpe, Rossville, and Maranatha Christian in District 2 for 1A.
Oh, boy. Now, is that an eclectic group of characters? I know a lot of families in that Maranatha Christian group, and they've been 8-man. They were 11-man. Then they went 8. Now they're going to jump back up to 11-man. They got a brand new field, a brand new facility, but that's going to be rich with the Dogs basically trading places with St. Mary's in 1A. But that'll be a challenge for the Lions to live in that group, because we all know what the Olpe Eagles are all about.
Yeah, Olpe, Rossville. Yeah, that's a heck of a district starting up next year. Appreciate our friends over at Acacia Covered for putting all that together, nice and easily accessible. Mitch, why don't we dive into the Kansas City Chiefs here, because they had a game this past Sunday night, which I think kind of epitomizes the NFL and what NFL football is, that you can look like the better team for the majority of a game. You can get out to a crazy hot start. You can be a huge favorite in a game, but every team's talent level is so close that you still got to find a way to win on the margins, because even after going up 17-0, the Chiefs win that game over the Jets 23-20. Kind of a gut check game for the Chiefs, but I'll be honest, I think you've got to be pretty happy about still coming out of that one with a win, even after the Jets gave you the best punch they could give, and Zach Wilson quite literally gave you maybe the best game he could give.
Oh, my goodness. Take it and fly out of there, out of the Newark airport with the win. I didn't apologize at all for being a part of that victory. And the Chiefs have only won there 3 times in 54 seasons. Now, they haven't been there a lot, but they're 3-8-1 in their last 12 games. It's not been an easy place for them to go. So I've got several reactions to your question and your inference. Is, okay, the Chiefs jump out to a big lead, but the NFL, to your point, not only what you put out there as hypothesis, which is true, is that the margin's way slimmer in all of these games than people realize. But even a few plays can dramatically change a game. The punt inside the 10, penalty on the punt, now you're at the 4, now you get a penalty and you get a safety. That's 17-2. You have to free kick the ball to the Jets, and they get a field goal. It's 5 after an interception. Now they're in the game. You could have blown them out, and now they're in the fight at home and getting excited. But then the third part of the evolution of this game is that Zach Wilson becomes the only quarterback in history of Patrick Mahomes in college or pro to have more completions, more yards, more touchdown passes, and less interceptions than Patrick Mahomes in any of his college or pro games, and still loses the game because he muffs a snap at the end, and Patrick figures out a way to win on a 25-yard scramble on 3rd and 23. Isn't that also part of the league? And for years of my 30 brief years of being the voice of the Chiefs, many of those were tormented by Elway, and then it was Manning, and then it was Brady in a similar kind of game. But now I've got the quarterback who ends up winning a game at the end. So there's just a lot to that game, but your inference is correct.
We're talking to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Thursday at this time during the Chiefs season, brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. And let's stick with the offense here, Mitch, and we'll get to the defense plenty coming up. But this offense, I think there's been a lot made, and fairly so for the most part, about the fact that this isn't the typical Mahomes and Reed era Chiefs offense where you're putting up crazy points game after game and everything almost comes too easily, that you got to make sure everybody stays focused week to week. It hasn't been quite that crisp. Now, the running game I thought was really good against the Jets. Isaiah Pacheco had his best game of his brief career so far. I thought he looked great, but so much attention has been focused on these wide receivers, this still young group, and what it's going to take for them and their quarterback to really completely click and to really take off to a degree they haven't quite yet this season. And we've seen glimmers from most everybody, but what do you think it is going to take? And maybe the answer is just time, but what do you think it is going to take for this young receiver group and somewhat inexperienced group, especially with Richie James out injured, to really take off and to get to that next level like we've seen so many times in the past 5 years?
There has to be some measure of consistency. Now, we have to come to the conclusion that of any of the Patrick Mahomes offenses under Andy Reid, this is different. And so you got to recalibrate your thinking. I'm not sure this group will ever get to the 2019-2021 group. But that doesn't mean they can't win a lot of games and win the Super Bowl championship. It's just going to be a different way of doing it. Now, one of your nuggets of the night is the fact that the Chiefs have 6 different receivers that have at least 100 yards receiving this year. They're the only team in the NFL that has that. They just don't have a receiver that's got, like Justin Jefferson, sitting at 500 yards after 4 games. But to answer your question, what will it take? It's going to take a measure of consistency. There has to be some piece of consistency week after week. You don't have to have Rashee Rice getting 150 yards every week. He doesn't have to turn into Justin Jefferson. But there has to be catch an RPO pass for 8 and 9, and you know you have it. You know you have this certain route depending on certain defense, and you know you have it. Patrick Mahomes knows he's got that with Travis Kelce. Kelce's not perfectly healthy, so that's hamstrung him a little bit. But with these other receivers, the running backs are pretty good in the passing game. Look what Pacheco did last week, had 150-plus all-purpose yards, and a bunch of those in the receiving game. McKinnon, we know, can do it. Clyde can do it. But for the receivers, it's just being consistent, knowing that for Patrick Mahomes to know that he can at least count on these certain things going into any game against any opponent versus any scheme. And right now, the Chiefs cannot claim that they have that, but I think they need to develop that prior to the trip to Germany for sure.
This defense has been playing phenomenally to start this season through about a quarter of the season, roughly. There's not an even quarter anymore with 17 games, but you know what I'm talking about. At about the quarter pole of the season, this defense has looked great. Do you feel like this is the best defense that has played at the same time as Patrick Mahomes since Patrick took over in 2018 as the starter?
Well, that's the other side of the discussion that we just had, is the fact that, okay, this may not be the whiz-bang score 40 points a game and get 400 yards and 5 touchdowns for Patrick, but he's got a defense now to play to. And he's done that. The Jacksonville game and the Jets game on Sunday Night Football are the 2 great examples of that. Patrick played to that. Now, he made some mistakes early through the 2 interceptions in the Jets game that put the Jets into the game first and then kept them in the game because they could have scored at the end of the half. The 52-yard field goal missed by Zerline opened the door to go up 23-12, and that would have changed the psychology of the game, and then Pat throws an immediate pick. But there's a defense there waiting for him that still has a high ceiling. They have not topped out at all. They're going to get Charles Omenihu here soon, and these younger guys continue to play, and they've been able to get pressure and coverage. So it's just different. It's very much like New England's run in the 2000s. That wasn't always the same. Oh, it's Brady to Gronk and they're great, or Brady to Randy Moss. It wasn't. It was very different from time to time, depending on the defenses that they had and then the collective cast of offensive characters that they had to use and put all together.
Mitch Holthus is our guest, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. And now, Mitch, let's look ahead past this win over the Jets, now into a game against the Minnesota Vikings. It'll be the Chiefs' third game in a row against a team with a losing record. But even though I'm a Packers fan, I hate to give credit to the Minnesota Vikings, but I think this is a team that's better than 1-3 on the year. They've played all one-score games. They lost their first 3 with some tough luck mixed in as well and some tough opponents in those first 3 weeks. And we know that they've got a true arsenal in terms of pass catchers. I think KJ Osborne is a really good number 3. I loved Jordan Addison going into the draft this year. And Justin Jefferson has a very legitimate claim for the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. What is it going to take from every level of this Chiefs defense to try to limit that passing attack of Minnesota as much as possible?
Well, leave out T.J. Hawkinson.
Oh, for sure.
After the trade from the Lions to the Vikings, had 86 targets in 10 games. And he's had 31 targets in 4 games already this year. So he's definitely on the radar of Kirk Cousins. But this is a very dangerous and explosive team. Here's your first nugget of the night, and it might be the best one. Last year, the Vikings won your division in the NFC North. They did so by going 11-0 in one-possession games. They were 11-0. That was an all-time NFL record to have that many one-possession games and to go undefeated. Now, you can say, oh, gosh, it's karma, or that's going to even out, but it's evened out this year. You alluded to it. All 4 games have been one-possession games, and they're 1-3. They took the Eagles to the mat. They could have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a very dangerous Vikings team. Now, Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in NFL history. 3 years or 3 seasons and 4 games. He's by far ahead of anybody else who's ever been a receiver in the league at this mark of his career. It's by far, he's like 700 yards ahead of Randy Moss. So the guy right now he's zeroing in. There's never been a 2,000-yard receiver in the NFL. Right now, Justin Jefferson is trending for 2,300 yards. So he's just a monster. And then you throw in the guys. I do like the rest of their receiving core, and I like Hawkinson very much. Cousins he's got 11 touchdown passes, but he's also turned it over 7 times in 4 weeks. He's lost 3 fumbles, number 1 in the league, tied with Lamar Jackson. But he has 11 touchdown passes, but 4 picks. So what are you going to get with Kirk Cousins? But with Justin Jefferson, oh my goodness. Right now, he's the best in the league by a good margin.
Last thing I've got for you, Mitch, previewing this game between the Chiefs and the Vikings coming up on Sunday, a game that, of course, can be heard on the Chiefs radio network here on 580 WIBW with a 3:25 kickoff from Minneapolis. That defensive front for Minnesota, it's been a defense that has struggled for a couple of years now, not quite breaking through to being one of those top-tier units in the league, but they really can get after the quarterback, and Danielle Hunter might be one of the more underrated pass rushers. It feels like he's been in the league for 20 years. He's only, I think, 7-ish years into the league at this point. He can really get after the quarterback and force issues for opposing offenses. So how important is that offensive line execution for the Chiefs going to be to try to springboard the entire offensive production?
And don't forget Hunter Smith, who might be the best safety in the league right now, and probably saved the Vikings season on a blitz last week where he separated the ball from Bryce Young, ended up being a scoop and score. Harrison Smith's just a stud in his 12th year. But here comes your other nuggets of the night. And this, to me, is the first paragraph of this game. With Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, who was the coach for Miami when we played him in 2020 in the COVID year, right now, the Vikings are blitzing at a rate of 57.2%. That is the highest blitz rate in the NFL for the past 8 seasons. Okay?
Wow.
So they're blitzing. Now, Danielle Hunter, I am with you, leads the NFC in sacks with 5, and I think he might be the most underrated pass rusher, at least in the NFC. Harrison Smith is a beast at safety. He can cover, he can blitz, he's good. But Patrick Mahomes against the blitz in his career or against teams that blitz him at least 33% of the time is 13-0. He had 39 touchdowns and 10 picks. The Chiefs right now have the worst blitz passer rating in the league, but they've only been blitzed 20 snaps in 4 weeks. Nobody's blitzing them. They're playing all this zone. So the first paragraph to this game is, what will Coach Flores do? Is he going to stay with his scheme and run blitz, blitz, blitz like crazy? Or is he going to play it different against Mahomes? And if Mahomes does get blitzed, will the young receivers that we alluded to earlier, will they be able to read defenses and make the proper adjustments and routes? That, to me, is the crux of this game. That's where it starts, and then everything else flows from there.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us at this time every single Thursday during the Chiefs season, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union to talk all about the reigning Super Bowl champions. Of course, the Chiefs and Vikings can be heard right here on 580 WIBW on the Chiefs Radio Network coming up Sunday with kickoff set for 3:25. Mitch, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for hanging out with us, and enjoy Minneapolis coming up this weekend.
Well, I shall. And let me give the official welcome to the Care Paravel Lions. Welcome to 1A 11-man football.
I know they appreciate it. Mitch, thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See you. All right, man.
That is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got one more break to get to. We'll come back, get to the final word, and then we'll send you off to some high school football tonight after 580 Sports Talk overtime. All that coming up on the other side of this break as we round out this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Final word time here on 580 Sports Talk. And my final word actually not going to pertain to anything we talked about on the show today. A little bit earlier on in this 5 o'clock hour on this Thursday afternoon, news came down that one of the greatest NFL players of all time, Dick Butkus, passing away at 80 years old. He was just he was at week 1 for the Chicago Bears this year when they took on the Green Bay Packers. 60 years he was together with his high school sweetheart and wife, has a big family that still resides in the Chicagoland area. In fact, some of them even went to my high school. One of the greatest players in the history of the National Football League, Dick Butkus, passing away at 80 years old today. An amazing fact, in case you were not aware of this little nugget from NFL history, Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers were drafted with back-to-back picks by the Chicago Bears in the 1965 NFL Draft, both going on to Hall of Fame careers. Dick's a little bit longer than Gale's. Gale, of course, the Kansas Comet who passed away a couple of years ago, one of the greatest Kansas Jayhawks, maybe the best Kansas Jayhawk of all time. But rest in peace, one of the greatest NFL players of all time, Chicago Bears linebacker Dick Butkus, passed away today at 80 years old. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. We've got overtime coming up at the top of the hour. That is when we will hear back to our conversations with Paul Myerberg and Rick Peterson from earlier on today. Then at 6:45, pregame coverage begins. 7 o'clock kickoff for Lewis Toyota High School football on 580 WIBW as Highland Park takes on Atchison tonight. We're back for a shortened show tomorrow from 2 until 4:30 before K-State football. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Overtime's next on 580 WIBW.